I gotta do it. It's funny.
Oh my gosh.
I will now call to order the regular city council meeting of February 28th, 2022. Members of the public are invited to attend in-person council meetings in council chambers. Public access to the meeting is also available by telephone by using the call-in numbers posted on the meeting agenda. Meetings are broadcast on Channel 8 for Comcast and Xfinity subscribers and on the city's YouTube channel online. All callers will be muted and may only comment during the times allotted for public comment as indicated on the agenda. If you are on the phone waiting to speak to council and are also watching the meeting on YouTube or Channel 8, please know there are a couple of seconds of delay with the live stream. Please turn down your computer or TV volume as we approach the sections of the agenda reserved for public invited to be heard, so that you can hear the council meeting on the phone and to prevent background noise when you are unmuted to speak. Thank you for following these directions and for maintaining meeting decorum tonight. Joanna, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Leidy.
Hi, here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford.
Here.
Councilmember Witkovich.
Here.
Councilmember Jaramillo.
Here.
Councilmember Duran Malika.
Here.
Councilmember Lukeman Hiramasa.
Here.
Councilmember Goff will be absent. Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Walker.
Here.
Thank you.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. City Manager Guyer, do we have any responses to citizen inquiry?
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? All right, we are moving into public invited to be heard. This is an opportunity for public comment on any item not set for public hearing. Statements are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Statements must be related to city business and limited to matters of community interest. Joanna, has anyone signed up to speak to council tonight?
Yes. And actually, I apologize. I didn't grab the sign-in sheet from outside.
Okay.
Thank you, Jason. I also have a voicemail and an email that have
Okay.
been submitted.
Emily.
Okay. Okay. So we have one voicemail and one email tonight.
Okay.
So I will play the voicemail first.
To 2021 CTVH. Thank you, City Council. I'm Mark Bromley and want to remind the city that Democrats on council make for bad representation. I virtually attended the Civic Center planning meeting last week. I was unimpressed and think we could do better. How? By reviewing and finding new planning and development for the city center site. I have been to communist China and south of the U.S. border. I have seen what workforce housing is, and usually it violates human rights and is very inhumane and abusive. I have seen people want to impose workforce living for a decade or more on city council. I guess you aren't Americans. Let me tell you something. Having lived in a coffin locker on a Navy ship, no one has ever wanted to be considered just a worker. No one wants their families torn apart by poverty, forced to work for unethical or immoral employers, or have their children murdered by Planned Parenthood. I cannot explain all this in 5 minutes, but if you really want to know, we can sit down and I can tell you how this happens. Fact is, no one was happy picking cotton. That was U.S. Confederate slavery in the USA imposing workforce housing, just like the Democrats, and the Democrats are Confederates. Everyone in the USA dreams one day of having a family and providing for their children. My family was denied that right by Homeland Security and U.S. Secretary of State under the Obama administration, Clinton regimes. Right to life and to family is often hoped for after high school, which has been denied to many in Colorado because Colorado is cheap and stingy in the application of equality and our unalienable rights because of communist Confederate Democrats. Many, like my family, have been harshly treated and denied these rights and civil liberties. The entitled, privileged, elected, wanting slavery in the USA, known as the Democrats, who are the Confederates that caused slavery and indentured servitude in shacks and awful living arrangements like communists do in China. I, for one, oppose workforce housing as its tyranny and oppression, and we should not build like the communists in Northglenn or the communists from Denver want. Just say no to the Communist Party funding Democrat elected. The second matter of the civic plan for city center across from the park is that of the strip mall that you, the council, think you want. I say no to the strip mall as the old community center. Northglenn has plenty of empty shopping around E.B. Rain's Law Enforcement Memorial Park. We have plenty of shopping all around the city park. We even have a Safeway located not far, and the Greenway Trail connects grocery shopping and mini fast food to the city center. Plus, we have a nice number of food trucks, and we simply do not need another strip mall, as the Northglenn Mall is close by as well. Plenty of shopping in walking distance to the park. We can't even fill the shops we currently have. Besides, Community Center Drive is not a shopper-friendly street. We need to rethink that civic plan for the city center. No slave housing, no strip mall. This is a family community and isn't seasonal and is not a seasonal vacation spot like Moab. We only have a fake Delicate Arch, poorly fabricated at the boondocks. Northglenn isn't a tourist town. Northglenn is a family community, not a communist slave labor camp. I see some of the toxic 4 communists on council are currently enjoying having their family in Northglenn. How about do everyone a favor and provide the same common courtesy you have, as communists, have been enjoying here in Northglenn? I spoke about crime on the rise since 2019 in Northglenn. I also see the police report this meeting does state that crime rate has increased in Northglenn. Elections have consequences, and we can see since 2019 the city has only gotten worse by elected Democrats that favor crime. I'm aware of the closing of the prisons by the Democrats, the Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, holding meetings to allow felony criminals to vote for Democrats. I was at a few SOS meetings in Denver. Our own representatives I have ran against and opposed have also worsened crime in the area simply to get voters. No morals or ethics by Democrats as the crime rate increases. Since the felony criminal incidents that destroyed my car, I have gotten no help from insurance in restoring my vehicles. Both Geico and the General Insurance refused to pay me, the victim of crime, for the hostile crime that destroyed my vehicle. A crime that started next to the city hall, past the police station, past the homes of the council members, down Huron, and into my parked car while I was asleep. Democrats promised people in 2020 damages would be paid by insurances, and that never happened. That was caused by criminals or terrorists, Antifa, BLM, all that spray painting that happened down at Civic Center never got taken care of. And,
And that was the 5-minute limit. And now I'll read the email submitted by Holly Osgood. The process for the naming of the park at the Justice Center has not been open or transparent. The use of a single, non-solicited naming proposal and not seeking other proposals or communicating other recommendations provided in August 2021 is not right. This proposal has consistently been presented in the press as finalized since July 2021 and again in January 2022, giving false impressions. In their planning session, council noted this process did not seem transparent, but was a silent process. Why move forward on such terms? It doesn't speak well that a multi-million-dollar park can have its name determined via an openly acknowledged poor process, but a piece of public art that might cost in the lower thousands is one of multiple options on loan for a year and decided on by vote of the citizens. The citizens should be deciding the name from a variety of options rather than a single unsolicited request, especially when the process did yield other suggestions and options for consideration, but they were not forwarded to council for their review. This process should be reopened and redone so it is above reproach. Right now, it simply doesn't pass the smell test. Thanks, Holly Osgood. That's all I have.
Okay. Is there anyone with us tonight that would like to speak? No? We'll move into communications. We'll start with Ward 1. Councilmember Walker, how are you?
I'm doing well. Good to be back. Hope everyone is doing well. Madam Mayor, is this where I report back on the committees? Okay, just want to make sure. So we'll start with the legislative one, the meeting that was held tonight. There are quite a few bills that are out there. There's about 400 introduced and about 200 they think will be coming out later. But some of the ones that are important to us are such thing as House Bill 51, which is incentivizing the government to replace grass and manicured like landscapes with turf, and kind of like the program that we have now that we incentivize to our citizens. So we're most likely going to support it, and it could reduce staff hours. It could, even add green space to our city. So we're probably going to support that. That bill still has a long way to go. The other one that we were in support of was the House Bill 42, which puts regulations on tiny homes. CML was also in support of this, and mainly because tiny homes could be built in a jurisdiction where they have no regulations for a tiny home and then be towed here to Northglenn and could be a fire hazard. So basically bringing back that local control to us to set those things is why CML supported, and I believe we are going to support it. The other ones, let's see here. The Senate Bill 58, talking about the special districts. It was the one that Ms. Heather sent the email on today that talks about authorizing taxes to go to people like, or groups like CASA type programs, and the voters would get to decide the sales of the property taxes on that. So that one still has a ways to go, but those are the main updates that came from the legislative committee. Also, the other one that it did get killed, the marijuana one, which was the actions against employees from employers. That one is not going anywhere, or it's probably going to be killed, excuse me. The other one was 1138, which I believe we kind of spoke about, the alternate transportation mandate on businesses in such places as Northglenn to provide incentives and everything. That one died today, 9-1. So those are the major ones from the legislative committee. From CML, is it okay to continue, Madam Mayor?
Yes, please.
Okay, from CML, just a few ones that you might hear about is 1142, the extended hours for alcohol serving. We did support that, but it was with an amendment to have local control first, so that our local liquor license could have the say before the state grants a license for someone to serve alcohol till 4 a.m. or earlier at 5 a.m. So that's probably going to go through. The other one that has a long list of opponents and supporters is House Bill 1064, the flavor vape. I'm sure you guys are well aware of it. CML did take an opposed stance on that, basically because we have no idea how it's going to impact the local retailers here. And there are some other jurisdictions that are, like Denver, that are taking an approach of stepping up enforcement too. Instead of taking away the choice from adults, they're stepping up the enforcement of the flavor ban, which is the original intent of the ban. So that's a major one you guys will hear about. The other one that does not have a bill number is the recall elections bill. It's still a long way to go. Like I said, it doesn't even have a number, but it was the most contentious bill at CML. It passed 53-47, and basically what that did was raise recall standards. It would shorten the time for petitions from 60 down to 45 days, and then also raise the vote or the signature count from 25 to 35%. So like I said, this one still has a long way to go. We did vote to support it. And then the other one that you guys probably know about is the building code ones requiring net zero and electric car hookups. There was a lot of opposition to this in CML. It failed 83-17 at CML, just basically because there was a lot of there wasn't any support from places like Erie and places that just had their homes burned. Right now, we're trying to build houses out there as quickly as we can without trying to add additional costs. So that failed in CML, and that is basically the update from CML and the legislative committee.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. It's nice to see you on the dais. I don't think we have the swearing in, so welcome.
Ma'am, it's good to be back. Good to see y'all.
Councilmember Whitkovich.
Thank you. Nothing for me this evening.
Okay. Councilmember Jaramillo.
Yes, thank you. Since our last meeting, I served on the Northglenn Arts and Humanities Foundation Sculpture Selection Committee. We still do not know the 5 sculptures that will be out at E.B. Raines Memorial Park, but we should all find out on Wednesday for our next meeting. And last week, I was present for the ribbon cutting for Spot Wash on Malley and Pearl, and also Polaris Law Group on 112th and Huron, and it was good to see some new companies here, new businesses, and yeah, it's good to feel normal again, going out and networking too, like that kind of feeling is nice. So, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Duran Mullica?
All right, I'm going to start off with, of course, transportation. I know everybody loves transportation, and so do I. So, the North I-25 84th Coalition, this is a subgroup from the North Area Transportation Alliance, from NADA. We met last Friday to talk about I-25 again, and really the safety issues that we're seeing between 84th and 104th. This meeting was specifically with CDOT employees. One of the biggest issues with this project is that there isn't a plan on how to move forward. And so working and talking with CDOT obviously was a crucial next step for this group to really advocate, the reason why this is such an important project to our region, and in hopes that, we could continue further conversations with RTD, specifically around the 84th Park and Ride Station. So those conversations are still occurring. I just really want to make sure that everybody, especially residents, are aware that we know that this is an issue. We know that you are getting stuck in accidents several times a week on that I-25 corridor. And, the city and our counterpart cities are really doing the best we can to advocate for the residents of this region to make sure that this project is hopefully going to move forward and capitalize on some of the transportation funding that's coming into our state over the next year or so. So that work is happening. I do have another announcement that I need to make. And I tried to prepare myself mentally for all of this, so I'm sorry for the tears that I'm getting, but I thought I had this, but I guess I don't. So it's with mixed emotions that I'm announcing tonight that I'm vacating my seat for Ward 3, effective April 21st. My family will be relocating to Thornton. Breathing helps. Okay. Serving on Northglenn City Council has been one of the greatest privileges of my life. My husband and I moved to Northglenn as newly engaged 24-year-olds, believe it or not, just starting out in life. I just finished graduate school and got my first real job. So we bought a house and it was in Northglenn and it was perfect. Now, 12 years later, our starter home is bursting at the seams. As you might imagine, since we do have now 3 very active, quickly growing kids, and I am in constant awe of their ability to change week by week, even at age 8 and 6 and 3. So yes, we need more space. But serving this community has changed me forever. And I've made connections with so many people in this community that I will treasure and will carry with me. I myself am a different person since the first day I started. I've not only grown with confidence to represent my city, but also in resolution. So representing and advocating for the city is a true passion of mine. And so it's going to be a really tough transition, but I know that it's for the right reasons and for our family to continue to grow. So I want to say thank you to my family. First and foremost, my husband, who supported me nonstop over the last 4 years, to my amazing kids, especially. I don't think they're listening tonight, but maybe I'll show her this video. But my 8-year-old, Gabby, she was just a couple months old when my husband was elected. And so she has sacrificed Monday nights from a parent to the city of Northglenn for over 8 years. She is very, very excited about having mommy back on Monday nights. So I know that she's going to appreciate this the most. And, most of all, I want to thank the council members that I've been able to serve with and the amazing staff I think one of the things that people may not realize from looking from the outside looking in is just how great of a group we have here in Northglenn. From a staff perspective, we have amazing people who love this city and who love serving our residents. I mean, that alone is just, we're so lucky to have such dedication. So thank you all for all of the work that you guys have done. And then for the people who are sitting up here at this dais, for the people who've, sat through the meetings, who made it through COVID and had to sit through online meetings, all the executive sessions, all of those nights when we've talked about, what's best for Northglenn, how do we make our city better? I just admire your guys' passion to serve. I really do. Each of you guys bring your own perspective, and I love it. I love that we don't get along all the time. I love that we challenge each other to think in different ways, because I think it makes our city stronger. So I want to just clearly say, we do not have a toxic council. I'm sorry you guys are going to get those calls. But we do not have a toxic council. We have a great council that's going to continue to work together to find the best solutions for Northglenn. So that's my big announcement for tonight. I love you all. I'm going to be around for a little bit longer. My last day is going to be April 21st. But, I love the opportunity to serve with you guys. It's been a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Shannon.
I did not mean Councilmember Brown is at home. Councilmember Brown, would you like to,
Oh.
you have communication tonight?
I would. I have a couple things. Councilmember Mullica, I'd like to be one of the ones who pats you on the back and thanks you for all the hard work you did. I remember when you started council, and I can definitely tell you that you have grown and changed and become a wonderful representative of our city. I've enjoyed serving with you, and I'm not going to cry, but I'm going to miss you. I might cry because we have to go through that darn process again.
I know. But it's okay. You guys got it down.
I was thinking you were going to tell us you were pregnant again, but
Oh, God. Don't start there, Becky.
but I am really proud, having served with you, of the person that you've become and the knowledge base that you have. And who the hell am I going to call when I'm freaking out?
You got my number.
Yeah, I'll still be calling you sister, but you will definitely be missed. Definitely. I know it's best for your family, but I'll be calling Kyle after this meeting.
Hit him.
I'm a tad bit upset, but I'll leave you alone with that. I would just like to say that from our family to the world, that our thoughts and prayers are with the people of the Ukraine and everything that's happening over there, the war that's basically been declared. I'm very fortunate to work for a company that is working to personally help our employees out of danger. And that touches me a lot. I have some websites that I'd like to give you, Heather, that, really show you the true places where you can donate, the true places that you can help. And I'm just so proud of the Ukraine. I have a personal, I feel, vested interest in this. Poland is 538 miles from the capital, and I'm very concerned. So I just want to put out my thoughts and prayers in that. And I know that you all feel the same way. The other thing that I want to talk to is I just want to let you guys know, and I know I wasn't here when we voted on it. And but I have received over the course of the last week 11 residents, and I know that's not a huge amount, who are very upset at our lack of transparency in the naming of the park after Odell Berry. So I just wanted to share that feedback with you. I know that during the meeting that I missed, that there was conversation that we're going to look at the process and we're going to be better, which is the message that I'm sharing with our constituents. Jay, they're yours and mine, all of them, and a couple from Ward 4. But I really want to encourage this council to make sure to hold each other accountable, from the mayor to the council people to our city manager. hold everybody accountable for transparency. I think that it's really important. I think that it will help with some of the impressions that people have of city council. So I look forward to creating a cohesive relationship with our constituents that feel that we are not being transparent. I think it's really important, and I'll continue to echo that until my last day, which is after April 21st. After we get Julie's, I'm joking, after we get Julie's position filled. But I thought it was important, if you all are not getting these phone calls or you're not getting these text messages, that you know that there are residents out there that are not pleased with our lack of transparency in that process. Much like Holly said, from watching the recording, it seemed like we all knew that we weren't transparent in that process, but we didn't stop the process. And I understand from a city council standpoint why we did not do that, but I would like to see that not happen in the future. Just an update on me. Once I can drive at night, I will be back in city council, but right now my vision's too blurry to be allowed to drive at night. Other than that, I don't have anything. I have my first planning commission meeting tomorrow. I'm real excited to get my feet wet again in that area. And other than that, I don't have anything tonight. Goodbye, Julie. I'll miss you.
We get her for a few more weeks. Thank goodness.
Not enough.
Well said, Becky. I appreciate your sentiment on Ukraine. Councilmember Lukman-Hiramas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do not have any council communications tonight. On a personal note, I didn't have a new grandbaby. New grandbaby boy. Surprise! So I'm very excited for our families. And then also didn't know about Julie, and I just want to say that I really appreciate you. I've been on council now about 9 months, and I look up to you. I learned so much from you, and really enjoy listening to how you ask questions and how you stick up for our residents. So I just want to say appreciate that, and absolutely miss the heck out of you. But congratulations on your new future.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm not gonna cry. I'm gonna just keep telling myself that. Julie, even though I knew this was coming, it's still, you got me. I was over here sobbing because you've been such a force. You have been such a force since you have been on the city council, and you have done so much to fight for our residents, to put us on the map, push and elbow your way into conversations with like the most like reckless abandon I've ever seen.
Yep.
And I'm gonna really miss you, and I'm probably gonna have a very long speech / love letter for you your last day, because you've been my work wife since 2017, and like I'm bummed. And I'm excited for you and this next chapter. And I feel like we have until April 21st to like soak up as much like transportation knowledge and like sass and as we possibly can. And so thank you for everything that you've done. And this is just the beginning. Big shoes to fill though. Big shoes to fill. As far as my council update, I don't have anything beyond what everybody else has already mentioned, and a huge thanks to Nick for covering CML for me last Friday. He did a great job representing Northglenn. Thank you.
Well, I can't say anything. I will sob, so I'm just not. I said it personally. What? Can I do mine?
Okay, sure. You could do yours.
Nick, did you want to comment before I do mine?
Congratulations, Miss Julie.
Thank you.
Sorry.
One more time. They're working it up. Miss Julie, you'll be missed, and I'm sorry we didn't get to work together for that long, but I appreciate everything your family does for the city, the state, everything. Thank you.
I concur, yeah. Yes, I'm gonna skip that. I said thank you personally. I fly right through it. Okay. I do have communication pieces, so let's see. I had a great time on Thursday. Thanks to Officer Miller and his team and everyone at the department. They invited STEM lab students to come to the Justice Center, and they did. I had a dad pull me aside afterward and compliment the process. He said, you talked about how the laws are made, who enforces the laws, and what happens if you break the laws. And it was a whole package for these fourth graders. So I was honored to do my part. I had my little 30-minute sessions. And it was really fun. It was really fun. They asked a lot of great questions, and the overall experience was really, it was just high quality for those kids. And I know it took a lot of organizing, so thank you to everyone in the department and everyone that helped put it together. So that was really fun. And, anytime I get a chance to teach kids, it's like, the most fun ever. So I had a great time. I also had a chance to go to M&O. So many of you know that I film my Mayor's Monthly Minute. And Diana has gotten really creative and her team with Olivier, and we went out to M&O and I got to ride around in a snowplow. So definitely tune into this video. But it was just great to learn more about. I know the ins and outs of how we do our snow plowing and the decisions that we've made over the years. So it was good. And I just wanted to thank the communications team because you guys really have been going above and beyond to pull those videos together so that we can have one more piece of information for the residents. And then really quickly, Councilmember Brown, I wanted to thank you for elevating the number of residents that have reached out to you. I have only had one, and it was Holly. I appreciated her giving me a call last week. I had hoped to have heard from her ahead of the process, but I'm really interested in 11, and I'm wondering how we can get residents to reach out to all of us more often. I think it's great. You have a great connection with your residents. As how we can get them in. How do we get them into council meetings? How do we get them to share the emails more broadly with all of us so that we all have that information? I don't believe, at least in the moment in the meeting, that we weren't being transparent. I think we were all concerned about the process, but we made the decision with the information we had. And so had we had those 11 additional voices, I think it would have made a huge difference. So I think what we had mentioned in that meeting was that we want to get some of those public notices out there so that people don't have to dig for meeting minutes to find the information. So I look forward to continuing that conversation, but really I'd love to meet your 11 people because we do need to hear from them. I'd like them.
Most definitely. I would love it if they would come to this happens every time
Yeah.
that, it happens after a controversial topic, I don't know how, Meredith. I would like to know also how, I've been asking it for 6 years. How do we bring people into our meetings? How do we make them aware, we do everything that we possibly can and still, people don't come in and voice their opinions.
Right. Totally.
But I can share a few people with you privately.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And it's making me just reflect on, do we have a welcoming environment in the council chambers? And what do we need to do to change that? And I think actually Councilmember Mullica brought that up a couple years ago, back to how amazing she is. We'll sneak it in there. This did come out of her mouth a couple of years ago. It's how do we bring residents in? So yeah, we'll continue that conversation. And then once again, and this might be a regular meeting, little spiel that I give. So I just want to address some of the false claims that you probably heard during public comment tonight. We are not advocating for a strip mall And I think the term slave housing was very, very offensive. So I just caution any residents that are listening, if you have questions about items that are brought up during public comment, please reach out. So, connecting a little bit to the conversation with Councilmember Brown just now, is if you have questions, if you have concerns, email us. All of our contact information is out there. Some of these public comments that we're listening to week after week they're frustrating for me because there's just a lot of false claims made. So if you have questions, please come in, join us. We'd love to see you for public comment. If you heard something tonight that you're like, what? We have communists on city council? Come ask. The answer is no, by the way, but definitely come in or, reach out to us, ask, and we'll be happy to fill you in. Yeah, so that was just a small little piece there. Okay. City Manager Guyer, how are you?
I'm great. I'd like to extend my thanks and share with Councilmember Julie Duran-Mullica that it's been an honor to work with you. And I'm sad to see you go. And I won't say anything beyond that because I feel the emotion in the room, and I'll save it for your last meeting. Thanks.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hi.
Going back to Mr. Bromley,
Mhm.
Heather, didn't we decide, or weren't we going to get what he referred to as tramp stamps off of EB Reigns? Has that been taken care of yet?
Would you like me to address
Yes,
that,
please.
Mayor Council? So the reference is tramp stamps. What that is we had, the city had put in stencils as part of the Pride Fest event that we hosted last June. We used a paint. It's not technically graffiti. I know that's been a concern that has been raised, and it technically is not a tramp stamp either. I think it's important for me to share that with City Council. Park staff is working to remove it. We used a paint that ended up being a bit stronger than we thought it would. We thought it would wash off more quickly. It hasn't. So we have been, as time allows, having staff go out and work to remove it on days where it's appropriate to be using the water to remove it. So it's going to take some time, but I have given that direction, and you will eventually not see those stencils that we had put in honor and celebration of Pride Month.
I was definitely not offended. Do you think that the snow will help loosen that stuff up too?
No, we, Councilmember Brown, are having to power wash it because, again, the paint just turned out to be stronger than we had anticipated. So it'll just take several power washings to get it off. They're making progress. I've been monitoring that over the last several weeks since this issue was raised. So staff has that direction, and you'll see them removed. I will make a note to reach out to council and let you know when it's completed.
I would just like to say that I supported them. I just thought it was chalk, but I support the diversity in our city and saw nothing wrong with it during Pride Fest or even afterwards. So I'm sad to see them go, but I understand that we probably needed to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joanna, how are you tonight?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm doing well. I would like to hold my comments regarding City Council Member Duran-Mullica's departure from council until the very last moment possible in April.
Okay.
So with that, I have no other communications tonight.
Okay. City Attorney Hoffman.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Two things. So I'm going to try to be the dispassionate one and say that with the April 21st resignation date,
You better get on it.
that council has until May 21st, which is a Saturday, to fill the vacancy. And so it can certainly start the process in advance. And it has several Mondays, but May 21st, which is the deadline, is in fact a Saturday. And I too would like to thank Councilmember Duran Mullica for her service to the city. It is obvious how much the city benefits from the type of service you provided us as a council member. And then the only other thing I have is you all will be getting a memo from me this week that will build on what you're going to hear a little later tonight from Tamara Dixon related to ultimately how the city opts out of the state family medical leave and caregiver leave. Even though the city's process has been going on for some time, as she will report on, the state did not give us guidance through its regulatory scheme of how we actually opt out until a couple of weeks ago. And so it requires 180 days advance notice, which means that the city's process for opting out as part of having its own program has to be completed by the end of June. So we will be getting that to you this week.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Motion to approve.
Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Councilmember Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. I will close that vote, and the consent agenda passes unanimously.
Excellent. Moving to ordinances on first reading. Joanna, will you read the title, please?
A bill for a special ordinance amending the 2021 budget, recognizing revenues and appropriating expenditures by supplemental appropriation for the payment of the costs and expenses of the municipal government, agencies, and offices of the City of Northglenn, Colorado for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2021.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Motion to approve.
Jason Loveland, our Director of Finance, is here to present. Hi.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I won't re-go over the title of this, but I'll just mention the specifics behind this amendment to the 2021 budget. This is going to capture revenues and expenditures associated with the development and revenues at Carl's Farm, as outlined in the memo, building permit, electrical permits, and plan review fees that are part of that process of construction that are incurred by the builders, paid to the city, who then in turn pays our third-party building vendor, Safe Built, those fees. So along the budget process, historically, we have had pretty consistent budget numbers. And then when we have new construction, we'll see an increase in revenues and expenditures. And in 2021, this increase in expenditures over what we had budgeted was approximately $450,000. Again, we received revenue over $500,000 more than we had budgeted. And so we're bringing this forward to amend this piece. 45% growth in a line item has an impact. And so we're going to recognize this through the supplemental, where general fund revenues will increase to $27,394,968, and total general fund expenditures to $27,987,369 for 2021. So then staff recommends approval of this on first reading. The public hearing for this item will be held on March 14th. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jason? Seeing none, please call the vote.
The vote is open. Councilmember
Open.
Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. I will close that vote, and CB 1979 on first reading passes unanimously.
Okay, we have 4 discussion items tonight. The first one is the Dolly Parton Imagination Library Program Update. Rupa Venkatesh, our assistant to the city manager, is here to introduce the item.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council.
Hi.
All right, so in March of 2021, Council approved a resolution allocating $5,000 to the Westminster 710 Rotary Club for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library Program. During that March meeting, council requested that pre-surveys be sent out to all the new participants, in addition to the post-surveys that are already being conducted in order to measure outcomes. So I'm not going to try and steal our guest's thunder, but from my understanding, that pre-survey that you all requested, it's now being looked at as a best practice across the chapters in the program. So kudos to you all for that. Roger Goodenkoff with the Westminster 710 Rotary Club is here tonight to provide you all with information. And because we have some new council members and for the benefit of the public, he's going to provide a brief overview of the program. He'll also explain to you how your $5,000 contribution helped our youngest residents, the outcomes of that survey, and also he'll talk about 2023. So welcome, Roger.
Thank you.
Hi.
So, hi.
Yeah, just that. Right here.
Okay. Thank you again for the support of the program and what have you. So I'll just go straight into the presentation and we'll talk about what the Imagination Library program is and how it works. So the goal of the Westminster, by the way, Westminster now is no longer Westminster 710. Our two Rotary clubs joined together as one Rotary club, so we're with the Westminster Rotary Club. And our goal is to have all the kids in Adams County achieve kindergarten literacy readiness when they go to kindergarten. And we've put out a big effort to make this happen. So we thank you, first of all, for your support for last year and your $5,000. What we provided 440 kids a book this month in February, and 95 kids have graduated in the last 12 months. So in that, we've affected 550 kids in the city of Northglenn. And there's probably more than, these are just kids that have a Northglenn address. So if there's a zip code that flips in there with a different, like Denver address or what have you. So I don't know if you know, but when COVID hit, Dolly Parton, every Friday night, she sent an email out to all million. Sorry. Okay. She sent an email out to all million people, and she read to kids live on Zoom every Friday night to kids, and my grandkids love. Here's Dolly. So here's just an update of so we're ready. Yeah.
So we're having a little issues with the video, so just give us 2 seconds.
Hi, everybody. This is Dolly. Before he passed away, my daddy told me that the Imagination Library probably was the...
Thank you. Uh-oh.
My apologies. Keep going. Do it again real quick.
Say this is the only advantage of virtual council meetings. You just share your screen.
Hi, everybody. This is Dolly. Before he passed away, my daddy told me that the Imagination Library probably was the most important thing I'd ever done. Now, I can't tell you how much that meant to me because I created the Imagination Library as a tribute to my daddy. He was the smartest man I've ever known, but I knew in my heart his inability to read probably kept him from seeing all his dreams come true. Inspiring kids to love to read became my mission. In the beginning, my hope was simply to inspire the children in my home county. But here we are today with a worldwide program that gives a book a month to over 1 million children. Of course, I have not done this alone. The real heroes of our story was the thousands of local organizations who have embraced my dream and made it their own. They raise millions of dollars each year and wake up every day with a passion to make sure that their kids have every opportunity to succeed. It's been quite a journey, but we have so much more left to do. Now, I'd love for your community to join our family, so please take the time to explore our website. Let's share this dream that all children should grow up in a home full of books. The first step is always the hardest. But you will never know unless you try.
So in 2012, the Boulder Rotary Club come down and visited our club in Westminster and told us about Imagination Library. By the way, Boulder no longer does Imagination Library, but they told us about it. We got excited because of the area that we cover. I live at 84th and Pecos. So we have a lot of people that are free and reduced lunch, don't know how to read, and what have you. So we went to the Westminster Legacy Foundation. They give us $3,000. We come up with $3,000, and we started the program. We went to 5 elementary schools, and I sat out in the parking lot as parents come up, and we signed up the kids, and we had 200 kids, 50 kids signed up real fast. So the history is, in 2012, we sent out 525 books. 2022, we're going to send out 85,000 books. At the end of this month, or at the end of this year, we will be sending out 10,000 books a month. The partners that we come up with, and when we first did this, and that's when last year when we was working with Rupa and Heather, is you needed to have, to input kids' information, you had to gather the information and put it. So we went to Child Find, we went to ECPAC, we went to foster care, CASA, Commerce. We went when Commerce City lost their school district to the state. We decided to go help them and try to get their kids to read. So we did all the pre-K kids in Commerce City. The Westminster Library Growing Home is the homeless area in South Westminster. And we actually, Jamie there gets 20 books sent to her and she delivers them to the kids that do not have a house to have. Hope House, I don't know if you're familiar with Hope House. Hope House is for teenage moms that was started over in Arvada. So them are the kids that do this. We know as a group that access book is the key to their success. We know that 61, these are figures we didn't come up with, but 61% of the low-income families have no books at all in their houses for their children to read. So these are not our stats. These are children in low-income families lack essential one-on-one reading time because the parents are so busy working and trying to make ends meet. And we also know the most accessible way to improve the reading income is to have books in front of them. And the only behavior measure that correlates significantly with reading scores is the number of books that they have in their home. And if you need to get your child signed up for this so that you get these books coming each month, anybody that has anybody from 0 to 5. So Heather and Rupa, we spend a lot of hours trying to come up with, because you guys had said, we need survey, we need to get information. So we did a survey, and what we do is when a kid signs up, we will survey them. We'll survey 2 months worth of them, that what was their reading skills before. And then we survey all the kids that received a book that signed up in the last 12 months. And the stats are unbelievable. 50% have less than 20 books in their home. 50% read to their kids before enrolling in Imagination Library. Now 85% once they get the books. 40% of the children are asked to be read to before enrolling. 70% after. 30% read alone less than 3 times a week. 77% read alone more often after they receive the books. So the success, and this is in our neighborhood here. This ain't worldwide. It ain't the state of Colorado. It's unincorporated, or it's in Adams County. So what happened when Dolly Parton started this program in Tennessee, she did it in the Smoky Mountains, and then it became successful throughout the state. Eventually, the state of Tennessee matched the funds of anybody that was doing programs there. And as of before last year, Tennessee, Ohio, and Delaware were the 3 states that was doing the program. So Jack Tate and Jeff Bridges, 2 senators, went to a program there, seen it, come back and introduced the program. Me and Gary went down and talked about the program to the State Education Committee. And in July 11th, Governor Polis signed a bill where they would match our funds. Now this.
Cool.
Today, I'm happy to announce the statewide launch of Dolly Parton's Imagination Library here in Colorado during Family Literacy Month. What was imagined by Senate Bill 185 is now a reality with the Imagination Library here in Colorado. One of my goals is to make Colorado the very best state for children and families. And we know the most important factor in a child's success is early introduction to books. And we're proud to start connecting more children to books with Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, a program that embodies our commitment to making sure every family and child thrives. When you enroll in a local Imagination Library program, you get a free book every month from birth through 5 years of age. And this statewide expansion builds on the work of local champions in Colorado who've been placing books in the hands of children for years. And I want to thank so many who've worked hard to expand this program. Senator Bridges, Senator Tate, the Colorado Department of Education, thank you for leading this expansion. The first priority over the next year is to recruit and partner with new affiliates across the state. Knowing how vital early childhood education is, we couldn't be more excited about the mission of Dolly Parton's Imagination Library and our partnership. I also want to thank American icon Dolly Parton, who made such a powerful dream a reality and who has changed the lives of countless children for the better across our entire nation, and now more kids right here in Colorado.
Hi, I'm Katie Anthus, the Colorado Commissioner of Education, and I'm so excited today to celebrate the expansion of Dolly Parton's Imagination Library to the whole state of Colorado. Ensuring that students are reading on grade level by 3rd grade is our most important priority here at the Department of Education, and we know that an early introduction to books helps us meet that goal. I want to thank the partners who brought the Dolly Parton Imagination Library to Colorado, the governor, the legislature, and the State Board of Education. We know that this will be a game changer for the children of our state. And most importantly, I want to thank Dolly Parton for making early literacy one of the most important priorities. And she continues to help the entire nation reach this important goal. Thank you.
This is Dolly Parton. I want to personally thank Governor Polis and Senator Bridges for leading the way to bring the Imagination Library into your state of Colorado. And we've still got some work to do, but we're going to get there. So let's put some wings on that Imagination Library. Let's get some books in the hands of more children. Thank you for helping out.
Oh, there. Super. So what we did then, our Rotary Club said, let's make Adams County the first county in the state of Colorado to have the most kids. We have 35,000 preschool 0 to 5-year-olds in the state, in the county. So we separated all the school districts, we did a percentage, all the cities. And again, when we first started this, and I sat down with Heather and says, it ain't fair for us to be paying $10,000 and the city of Northglenn to be paying $10,000. So then we looked at the percentage of kids in Adams County and come up with the figures that we come up with for everybody in the state, along with the county and the Rotary clubs and what have you. It was a learning process as we moved, and the city was one of our main teachers. It was phenomenal. Well, yeah, when you just go at it point blank. So you have approximately 3,300 children from under 5 years old in the city of Northglenn. If in the state of Tennessee and Ohio, 65% of the kids sign up for the program, even when it's available to them. So we're going to do at least 70%. So if we do 70% of the kids in Northglenn, there's 2,300 kids in the city of Northglenn that could receive these books. We send a mailer out once a year because the books are sent out with not address correction. So if the person moves, the post office won't forward that and what have you. Although Dolly has worked out something with the post office where we get a notice sometimes that says they moved. But we send this out in case they move so we don't spend money sending books to somebody that's not. The cards I'm gonna leave this whole box here, but I carry these cards with me. And this card just says, you hand that to a mother or a father. They take this, they go home and go to Imagination Library and sign up their child. Then it comes to us and we look at the registrations and then we approve it and they get a book the following month. So we're gonna leave a whole box. You would ever see me at a restaurant or whatever? If there's a baby in there, yeah, so. And I've never been arrested yet for doing that. So that's it in a nutshell. I mean, this little brochure right here is a brochure we put together where you could put the city of Northglenn on it and you could mail this, you can email it to everybody here, what have you. I'm in the process now, and we may want to do this, I'm buying a list of all 0 to 3-year-olds in Adams County. And when we get that list, then we can do a mailing to them to send stuff to them and what have you. And it'll be both Spanish and English when we do it. And just right now, there's 17,000 books sent out in the state of Colorado, and we're sending out 5,000 of them in Adams County. So so we hope that cities will, like you, will make this part of your budget just continuously. So next year, when we say we're going from 10,000 to 12,000, it'll show exactly what you need. So, do we have questions or not?
Yeah, so you can turn it back to the mayor.
Yeah, I think we're all just very excited. Councilmember Duran Mullica.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your presentation and your update. I really love the information that you've been able to pull out of the survey. I think that was fantastic. And most of all, I just want to thank you, Roger, for all of your hard work and being really passionate about this project and bringing books to our kids. I mean, it definitely takes a champion to see this project grow as it has. And thank you for being that champion.
You're welcome.
And your whole team. I'm sure there's a team of you, but, thanks for being here tonight and giving us an update.
Councilmember Walker.
Mr. Roger, thank you for being here tonight. Great presentation. And I have more of a question.
Yeah.
I saw in the budget and time thing, staff talked about a $2,000 increase. And I'm curious, is that $2,000 increase what we need to get to that 70% number you're talking about, or is that 70%?
You can sign up every kid in the city of Northglenn, and whatever you donate, it's just because the other cities are not as fast as you are.
All right.
So when we hit 10,000 kids per month this month, then I stop it. And they can register, but we won't add any names. And then, so if you sign up all 3,300 kids, and that is only going to cost you the $5,000.
Okay.
So
thank you, sir.
There's no limit.
Mayor Pro Tem Wolford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Roger, thank you for being here. You brought two of my most favorite things together in a presentation, Dolly Parton and books. My mom's a retired librarian, so books just absolutely hit me in my heart. Thanks for everything that you're doing to make this program possible. I am curious if you do drop off those cards to the area daycares at all, or if you do any sort of outreach with any of the area daycares.
We're moving at a heck of a pace. But yes, that's one of the things I'm trying to get more committee members in our Rotary Club to where we'll reach out to all the daycares as the funding has happened now. We've had the school districts have all jumped in already again this year. And so now we can say we can go to 10,000. So we can't. It's the Rotary Club that's got to come up with the bucks. If we don't have it, then it's not there. So once it's there, now we're ready to start reaching out to all the daycares in Adams County and just get them information, and then they can get it. But we've been working mostly with preschools before daycares and a few libraries.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your efforts. This is tremendous. Thank you.
Councilmember Brown.
I just wanted to share, Roger, that while you were doing your presentation, because I had read through it, I went in and registered my granddaughter.
So I'll go in tonight, because the way the work program works, tomorrow morning, March 1st? Yeah, tomorrow morning, Dolly pulls down the list and then bills us, and that's who will receive the book in April. So if I'll go home tonight and look, I'll approve it, so they will get their first book in April yet.
Oh, thank you so much. Her name is Cambria Davis, but I shameless plug, who is going to the STEM school. She was excited. She was accepted to STEM lab. So this is, I love it. We read a lot together, but I wanted my constituents and our constituents to know just how easy that process was. It took me no more than 2 minutes to register her for that. And I regret not doing it sooner when you spoke to us last time. So I appreciate all the hard work that you're doing, and I can't wait to
No.
Councilmember Jaramillo?
Well, thank you again, Mr. Gudenkauf. I appreciate the work you do. As someone who grew up here in Northglenn as a kid, so I appreciate you doing that for the next generation and doing good work. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. That was amazing. And did you say that you were leaving those cards? Now, I love the idea of accosting people at restaurants.
Walmart, the first thing you gotta ask if they live in Adams County.
Yes, okay.
Because Weld County ain't doing it, Jeff County ain't, Broomfield County ain't. Actually, we're sending 250 books to Broomfield County because the zip codes
Yeah.
share. And so, yeah, but you want to ask them because they'll be very disappointed at you when they go home and say, oh, I live in Weld and I don't get this or whatever. So,
Well, thank you again for your work on this, because it really is it's a treasure and it's such a resource for our families, so thank you.
and it's very important in the COVID era.
Yes.
These kids, the more we can do. So
Yeah.
I want to thank Heather and Rupert for, it's been phenomenal working with the two of them, so.
So before we wrap up though, so 2 questions for council. I think I might know the answer, but if we can get direction from council whether or not to bring back a resolution to approve another $5,000 for the 2022 year. And then in 2023, so that's one question. And then in 2023, if you want us to go ahead and include $7,000 in the budget for this program.
Seeing some nodding. Does anyone want to? Okay. Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Way to cut right to it. Thank you. All right, our next item, paid family and caregiver lead policy update. Tamara Dixon, our Director of HR and Chief Diversity Officer, is here to update council. Hello.
Thank you. Hello. Good evening, Mayor, council members, Councilwoman Duran Mullica. All the best to you. Thank you for your service to this city and to this organization. This is my first council presentation in person. I was sitting there thinking about that I'm normally virtual and my sound always goes out. I was sitting there worried, this is my first in person, am I tall enough? Can they see me over this? So I'm just happy to be here tonight to give you an update on the city's paid family and caregiver leave policy, and my presentation is gone. Just click forward. Thank you, Joanna. So as a refresher for some, new information for others, in 2020, Colorado voters passed Proposition 118, which mandated a paid family leave requirement for all Colorado employers. At that time, we as a city decided to opt out, and as our city attorney has explained, there are some steps we still need to take there. But we decided to opt out of the state plan and create our own paid family leave program, which council graciously agreed to. So our paid family and caregiver leave program was approved by you and effective in March of 2021. And we believe that it has created some benefits for our employees and for our organization. So I won't read all of these, but I do want to highlight a few. I think all of us can say for sure that we know the pandemic created so much extra stress for all of us on top of the stresses of life in general. And I think this policy really set us apart as an organization in that we really worked hard to try to remove one stress for our employees. And that stress was, how would they financially take care of themselves and their family during a time when they needed to be out because of a medical situation? So I think we can say, and I have some impact statements for you later, I think we can definitely say this policy has resulted in improved morale. It also, I think, helps us to be equitable to all genders and not just moms when new babies come into the lives of our employees. And because we are an organization that I believe walks the talk when we say we care about employees, that gives us a competitive recruiting advantage. And so this is a policy that we highlight for potential employees when they want to come to the city of Northglenn. I wanted to provide you with some first-year metrics so you get a clear example of the benefit. So since its inception, we've had a total of 22 employees utilize paid family and caregiver leave. Now, you'll note 21 employees used the benefit in 2021, and there's been one new case in 2022. So that middle bar, which it looks turquoise to me, but it's gray there, it says 5 employees have utilized it in 2022. 4 of those cases are carryovers. That leave started in 2021, so they are counted in that top bar. So 22 total. Our policy requires the employee to use 80 hours of their own general leave, and then the city will pay for the benefit for the remaining 10 weeks for the paid family caregiver leave. I must note that one case did not run concurrently with family medical leave, and this is a really important distinction to make. When we started drafting this policy, we tried to think of all scenarios that could potentially be negative. And so one thing we talked about was, will the creation of this policy potentially be abused? Will we have so many employees out of the office? 21 of these employees would have been out of the office anyway on federal family medical leave. So for the first year at least, we can say no to that question. It did not create an issue for our organization. You may be wondering about that one case. So as you may know, federal family medical leave requires that an employee work for the organization a minimum of 1 year and 1,250 hours. Our paid family and caregiver leave policy mandates the employee must work for us a minimum of 6 months before they are eligible. So this policy also serves as a retention tool for some of our newer employees who may have a medical issue arise during the beginning of their employment with us. I'm sorry, let me back up and tell you, you see the cost for the 2 years. The total cost to the city to date has been just over $157,407. So I did want to share that. This slide shows that, the paid family and caregiver leave benefit is really utilized across the organization. It's not just been one department. And the top 3 reasons employees have requested this leave have been because of their own serious medical condition, due to the birth of a child. And would you believe we had 8 babies join our city family in 2021? I was really stunned by that, but, pandemic and, and the third reason being they needed to care for a family member who was ill. So I'm a big believer in going straight to the source when I want to know how something is or is not working. So I reached out to our employees who have utilized paid family and caregiver leave, and I said, would you just tell me how this policy has impacted you and your family? Because I really wanted to share that with you. And I will say I was really touched by these quotes that I received. But more than that, it makes me really proud to work for a city that cares for its employees. And I'm really thankful to you all again for considering this when we brought it to you, and really thankful to City Manager Geyer as well. And so I won't read all of these, but there are some words here that really resonate with me. We had a public works employee say, it helped me with one less stress. That was our goal. And I really appreciate this program. It's a lifesaver. We had a Northglenn police officer, this is a father of a new baby, telling us and really applauding us for how easy it was for him to use this benefit and to apply and to shift dates, because we know babies come when they want to, not when doctors tell us. And he says it was one of the best things for his family. Reading things like that as an HR director is really impactful for me, and again, makes me proud to work for this city. Another Public Works employee, unfortunately, her mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And she says having paid family and caregiver leave allowed her to be by her mother's side when she took her last breath versus having to put her mother in hospice. This is incredibly impactful and emotional for me. We have a finance employee who was able to be by her father's side while he recovered from heart surgery. There's a statement in here, time can never be bought back once it is lost. And I am so grateful for the time I was able to help my father. That's huge. That's huge for our employees. And then lastly, we have another Public Works who really had a lot to say, and I was really appreciative of this employee telling me this. But I will say what sticks out for me in this statement, removing the worry of all those concerns she had with her family's illness is huge, and being able to focus on the care required makes a hard situation considerably easier. And I will say these impact statements really tells me that our goal with this policy is really being met. And so that concludes my update. I have to tell council I'm really appreciative of your thoughtfulness when we brought this to you and for allowing me to be here tonight to give you this update. And with that, I will ask for any questions.
Councilmember Brown?
Tamara, I need you to remind me. Do we pay this benefit at 100% of salary?
For 10 weeks, yes, we do. The first 2 weeks of the employee's leave, they have to use their own general leave, and then the city will pay for the remaining 10 weeks. I will say that all 22 cases were not the full 12 weeks. I don't have that breakdown for you, but they were not all 12 weeks.
Does it roll like, I'm sorry, we haven't talked about it in a long time.
That's okay.
Does it roll like FMLA does, where they can access the benefit more than once?
So they have 12 weeks in a calendar year, their rolling year to use the leave. Once they use the 12 weeks, they cannot re-up at that point. But they can use the leave intermittently as they would do family medical leave.
And then my last question for you is our benefit better than the state's?
Yes.
Good.
I can say that it is, and I do believe the way the state, and Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, the way the state would run that policy, it would be more of a burden on the organization from an administrative standpoint. I think the policy that we've created in this program has proven to be easy and beneficial to both the employee and us.
I thank you for everything that you've done. I thank my fellow council people for voting this through and getting it taken care of. I'm glad that we can support our employees like this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Councilmember Duran Malika?
Quick question. So you said that we require that employees use 80 hours of their own time before. What if they don't have 80 hours? What do you guys do?
So we've not run into that situation yet, but that is the requirement, so it would.
They would just be unpaid time
It would
then?
be unpaid time,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
As it was with family medical leave and the employee didn't have enough general leave at that time, it would be unpaid time.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that point as,
Yeah, that is a
some people don't,
requirement.
keep up their PTO like others. I like to use mine. But one of the things that I really love about this policy specifically for Northglenn is kind of seeing it start to finish. It originally came through the legislative committee. Me, Jenny, and Jordan Sauer were hanging out one day talking about some bills when it was first introduced to the state legislature. And, Heather was, she had some concerns for our city, and Jenny's like, yeah, we got to do it. And and it was a great conversation. And then, Heather and team, you guys just really hit it out of the park. I think this has just been a fantastic policy that we've been able to put in place. And I'm really hoping that you're telling all of the other cities about it so that they could have it too, because I think it's great for all of our cities to really support our staff the way that we've been able to. So we could be a shining star, just make sure everyone hears about it.
Thank you. If I may share a quick anecdote, when I worked for Heather in Wheat Ridge, I remember going to the Colorado Culture of Health Conference.
Okay.
And there was a private employer there talking about their paid family leave program. And I'd not heard of any public sector organization who had done that. So to now be here and we've done that, you're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
It's cool.
It is very cool.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Duran Mullica, for the play-by-play. That was, I was there with you.
You were really excited about this.
I
You
was,
championed
and-
it from the side, and we're like, cool, Jenny.
No, I mean, I feel like we had such a robust conversation about the state proposed policy versus what we could offer. And I'm really proud of the program that we built for our city and for our employees, because I believe it's probably the most generous in the entire state and most generous out of all of the municipalities. And it's our residents who reap the benefits as well. So I just wanted to say thank you, and thanks for bringing the impact statements as well, because I think that's really important for folks to understand that, like, you know, part of, like, a big reason that we are advocates of paid family leave is because we know that people should not have to choose between spending those last moments with a loved one and their job. Like, that is just something nobody should have to choose between. And the reality is that our employees are humans, and they are going through these moments, and to have access to a program like this is just so impactful and so important. And my hope is that it will allow us to continue to be competitive in the job market and offering this benefit far and above what other organizations are. So thank you for leading the charge and administering it. It's truly exciting and making a difference.
Thank you.
What they There really isn't a reason to repeat it, but thank you.
Thank you.
It was lovely to see you at the podium tonight.
And I'm tall enough.
All right. Our next discussion item is the homelessness update. We have Jessica Hulse, Crisis Response Unit Program Manager, fancy new title, is
Hi,
here.
everybody.
Hello.
Thank you for having me, Mayor and Council members. It's nice to be back in person. The purpose of our presentation tonight is to provide City Council with an update on homelessness efforts underway in Northglenn and a little bit broader across the county. So first, I'm going to talk about the SWAP final report, and this is for the winter season from 2020 to 2021. And for our new council members, what the SWAP program is the hotel voucher program that is implemented by a nonprofit located in Brighton. It's funded by Adams County, and all the municipalities, most of the municipalities in Adams County are partners. So when SWAP is activated, then we have the ability to hand out some of those hotel vouchers on those cold nights. The threshold is under 32 degrees with precipitation and under 20 degrees without precipitation. So in the 2021 SWAP final report, we found out that the total cost for the 2020 to 2021 cold weather season was $403,994. Our council contributed $10,000 towards that program, and it provided 8,300 nights of unsheltered homelessness averted. And that means, when we use the term unsheltered homelessness, that means that the legal term of experiencing homelessness can still be when you're doubled up with families, but unsheltered is when you're literally on the streets outside. In the final report, we also asked these questions. Is this your first time experiencing homelessness? For 57%, or 370 of the responses, the answer was yes. 234, or 36%, was no. And it is unknown if it was the first time that person was experiencing homelessness for 7%, or 47 of the respondents of the survey. The way that SWAP was funded in 2020 to 2021 was $309,594 was funded through Adams County. Different municipalities, I'm sorry, mine looks different. The different municipalities contributed $45,000, or 11%, and then Emergency Solutions Grant covered $49,400 for 12%. So when looking at our 2021 Northglenn data, these are stats that I keep track of on a monthly basis. I look at the number of interactions by is the community resource navigator role, which is now 2 people, and I'll be introducing Jamie in a minute. The number of individuals that we come across, and then the number of interactions by PD. So we can track the number of individuals that the crew meets with because we can keep lists. We cannot keep lists of how many individuals are being contacted by the police department, but we can look at the number of interactions. So looking at that, you can kind of just see the rise through the cold months. The number of interactions by the community resource navigator or the crew positions has risen, especially as we opened the winter housing program, because we are doing more consistent case management with those people. So we're just having more interactions because we're also reaching out at the same time that they're reaching out to us as well. Looking at our winter housing program, so this is data, the opening day was December 15th, and this data goes through February 15th, so the first 2 months of the program. In the first 2 months of the program, 65 individuals have participated in the program, and we have averted 753 nights of homelessness at the old rec center. Of those 753 nights of unsheltered nights, 710 of them have been by the full-time participants, and 43 nights have been provided by the emergency drop-off. So again, as a recap with the winter housing program, we have 20 beds that can be filled by full-time participants, and these are people who are experiencing homelessness that also have an appropriate daytime connection, whether that be a job training program, employment, family members, accessing mental health, medical health, those sorts of services during the daytime. And then every night we have 5 beds that are dedicated to emergency drop-offs by our Northglenn Police Department. So 710 of those were participants, 43 were emergency drop-offs. When we look at the source, so 39 were full-time participants and 30 were the emergency drop-offs. So I said 43 nights were for emergency drop-offs and only 30 individuals, because sometimes when someone is dropped off on a Friday night, they are offered case management the following morning. I do not work on Saturday or Sunday mornings, and so that person's emergency status is extended through the weekend, so then we can have case management set up for them. When we look at gender, and I don't know why the slides aren't coming through the same as my presentation.
Yeah, sorry about that. Send your agenda packets. It'll look better. So,
yeah. 49 of our participants have been male, 14 have been female, and 2 have identified as non-binary. When we look at the exits of the winter housing program, 9 have been involuntary and 10 have been voluntary. So with that, I'm going to introduce our new community resource navigator. This is Jamie Sledowitz, and Jamie provides case management for the clients of the winter housing program, so I wanted her to talk a little bit about the outcomes. Do you want me to operate this?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie, and I do weekly case management with all the guests of winter housing. And so some reasons for leaving for the full-time participants, there was voluntarily and involuntary. So some voluntary reasons was that the time schedule did not work with their work hours, the location didn't work, there was some relationship conflict, and some doubled up with friends, and we had some people get housed. Some involuntary reasons included attendance, there was substance misuse, and a relationship conflict. Involuntary exits are given a pathway back. So some emergency drop-off resolutions. Emergency drop-offs are offered case management the following workday, and this time is spent finding an appropriate place for the person to go or feel safe. They were provided local resources. We had 3 people get assisted and reunited with their family members, and that included going all over the United States. The farthest one was Florida. Some were assisted with medical care, some were assisted with behavioral health urgent care, some were assisted with emergency housing, and some were assisted with long-term shelter, and other guests entered as a participant. So it's the person's choice to engage in case management, and some choose to leave before their meetings the next morning. So steps forward in social support. The average step forward for an average full-time participant was 0.73. So that included ID connection, SNAP connection, phones, church, support groups, substance support, and physical health support. Some other steps forward included employment, and the average for a full-time participant was 0.8. So that included connection to job training, connection to employment. 9 participants have found employment so far, and 6 participants connected with job training. This is where consistency has shown to help, as longer-term participants are more likely to connect to jobs, while earlier exits have not had as high levels of success. So step towards housing. We've had 1 participant get fully housed, 2 have identified housing, 4 have identified how they will support housing, and 1 has exited to live with a friend.
Thank you, Jamie. So an unexpected win that we have had is how many people in our community are looking to volunteer. So we get called consistently to find out how people can get involved with this program. So volunteers are loving the program. The crew and Denver Rescue Mission have received many calls on how to donate, volunteer, or support the program. Dinners are consistently provided. Community members keep showing up to serve dinners, and they are appreciated, and it seems they enjoy having a service in the local community to help with. So we have people that have consistently gone down to Denver to volunteer with Denver Rescue Mission, and they were excited to have an opportunity up in this area. But weekly, we are fielding calls on what they can do to get involved. So this brings me to a little bit of an update on the crisis response unit and what our focus has been on. So our focus right now is always our Friday office hours. They've become busy, especially as we have the winter housing program right next door. The winter housing program has been taking up a lot of our attention. We rolled out a new software program called Unite Us, and this is a social health software program that allows us to take statements and assessments basically wherever we are with the person, and then make direct referrals. And then when the referring agency gets that referral, they can let us know that they accepted that referral or declined it for a certain reason. So that's been huge, and getting more nonprofits and other organizations on board has been a focus. We've been collaborating with the police and neighborhood services and municipal court and parks to meet the needs of residents, and we are still in the process of hiring our co-responders. I am happy to say we have 2 that are going through our process right now, because we are located, our office is physically located in the police department. We follow a lot of their hiring regulations and guidelines. So that includes a psych exam, a polygraph, a deep dive into background, a drug screen, and a physical. So it takes some time. But we do have 2 people going through that process right now. We do have a council request tonight, and that a barrier has been identified through the winter housing program for the deposit and first month's rental assistance. So council has already allocated $15,000 to the SWAP program, which is what I talked about at the first part of this presentation. And there's a request now to reallocate to the Denver Rescue Mission for a rental assistance program for winter housing participants. That is because that need is not needed anymore through the SWAP program, and so that $15,000 is not needed. Adams County is no longer requesting it. So, and CREW has identified a barrier for the participants as relates to the inability to secure housing because of the requirements of the apartment complexes to pay a rent deposit and first month's rent before signing a contract. So we have a goal with a lot of our participants to start saving for at least 1 month's rent, but they would need to save for at least 3 months' rent to be able to sign on to that first month's agreement for first month's, last month's, and security deposit. So it's quite a barrier. So Denver Rescue Mission already has a program like this and would be happy to allocate our finances for us, since that's not something that the city can take on or the crew can take on. So the $15,000 would be put towards Denver Rescue Mission's fund, and and then the crew would help our applicants fill out the paperwork to apply to the Denver Rescue Mission's housing fund. Oops. All right, so looking ahead, when it comes to homeless efforts in the city of Northglenn, we do have an MOU that we are working on with other municipalities to address homelessness. So this is a understanding amongst all of the municipalities that they're working together to address the needs surrounding our entire county. We are still working on the hiring of our co-responders. We are rolling out the crew. We have a PSA, and then we've also been hosting informational sessions with the Unite Us software to bring more organizations onto that platform for quicker, more efficient, and successful referrals. And we are still working on the Crook Reservoir project, which is the porta potty that would be put over there, and that's being added to the bid for the Crook Reservoir project. And that's it. Any questions?
Councilmember Brown?
So here's my question. The $15,000 allocated to the Denver Rescue Mission, right? Would that be specifically used on residents or home? They're not really residents of Northglenn, right? Unless they're homeless on our streets.
It would be allocated to the participants of the Northglenn Winter Housing Program.
Okay. So it would be used just for Northglenn residents?
The people staying in the Northglenn shelter. So it would not be spread over all Denver Rescue Mission participants. It would be used for the participants of the Denver Rescue Mission at Northglenn.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Mayor Pro Tem Wolford?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Jess, for this update. You all have been doing a lot of work, and it's really exciting to see. Okay, so as far as questions, I know that in the past that you've done office hours and hosted those weekly on Fridays. How is your foot traffic changing? Are you seeing an increase in folks? Are you seeing a decrease? What can you tell us about that?
So we are seeing an increase. I don't know if it's just because we are now more well-known or if it's because of the winter weather. So we saw this also last winter, which was an increase in need during the really cold season. Sometimes we have people just come sit with us because we do serve, coffee and some snacks. And then we just work on goals. We also have that grant with Colorado ID Services. And so we are extending our services during those office hours. And then we also now have Health and Human Services from Adams County coming in every other week to expedite some of those benefits packages. But all of that, I think it's more that it's just gaining the trust of the people who are unsheltered to walk into a building and ask for help. And so, and then it's just been consistent. So it's now been consistent for almost a year, those Friday office hours. And so it's a pretty easy, low barrier place for people to come in and say, this is what's going on and can you help me?
Awesome. That's all really good to hear. I definitely have been getting a lot of positive feedback from Ward 4 residents, in particular folks that live around Crook Reservoir and in not having as many interactions with folks that may be unhoused. And my hope is that they're a part of the winter program. I know that the point in time count recently happened. I guess my question on this is twofold. One is, were the folks that are a part of the winter housing program included in the point in time? And when should we have more information about what those numbers actually look like?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to your second one. I don't know when Adams or Metro Denver Homeless Initiative.
Yeah, MDHI.
We don't know. Yeah, MDHI. I don't know when they're going to release that stat. The winter housing participants were counted. So the way that happens is anyone who's in shelter the night of the 24th counts, and then we had foot traffic going on early the morning of the 25th. I don't know if you guys remember that day. It was really, really snowy. So we will have low numbers, I am sure, because a lot of people were hunkered down, but we were out there, yeah, for hours.
Yeah, no, and I know that it's such a gap in the point in time study that folks that are in their cars or maybe temporarily somewhere because it's snowy and weathery, they aren't necessarily captured. So I fully recognize that. My last question is around the rent guarantee, or around the potential reallocation, geez, of that $15,000. I was talking to a resident a couple of months ago, and she was telling me that she had to basically sign on her mom's lease to get her mom into a new apartment because her mom didn't necessarily achieve the income threshold that they needed for that particular location. Like, how are you all working around that issue? Because I know that that's not just an issue in Northglenn, that's around the metro region and probably the country as well.
Yep.
And so I'm curious how you're getting around that, if there's some sort of guarantee. And then I'm also curious, how many folks could that $15,000 cover if it were reallocated?
So that's a good question. How we're getting around it right now. So it's every situation is unique. Fortunately and unfortunately, there are other avenues for this funding. So with our person that became housed through the winter housing program, we did make a referral to the MDHI Flex Fund, and they were awarded that money. So, and I think that was around $2,000 for them to move into their new apartment. During that time, another winter housing participant had also identified housing, but because each referring agency is only allowed to have one referral in at a time, then that person lost out on the funding, so they lost out on the housing, and then that person has since exited because of growing frustrations. So that's a positive and a reality that we face with when applying for different sources of money. So now that one person has been housed, then that flex fund is open, but again, only to one person at a time. There's other barriers to housing, so looking at background reports or transportation needs when people they do find a job. So there's more barriers than just the funding, but when you do finally find a place that meet all the other barriers that the person's going to be able to overcome, then that last hurdle of finding enough money for them to move in is kind of the key point right there, because everyone needs money. And the person who was awarded the funding through MDHI, they almost also lost out on their housing because they were given a move-in date of the following Monday. And their check was cut on that Monday, so it didn't arrive to the place until the following week. So there was a little bit of time. And when you're working with someone who's living out of a shelter, they were working 40 minutes away and having to drive that every day on a car that was not working that well, it was causing high levels of stress, thinking that everything was going to fall apart any minute. So it was a huge victory when it all worked out. But did that answer that question about looking at the barriers?
No, it's really helpful. I think I'm open to exploring reallocating this $15,000. I just want to know that there is some sort of case management component that is that's layered on top of whatever that funding is going to be used for, because we know that when people are housed, right, like a housing first model, we ensure that you've got a roof over your head, we can figure the rest out, right? Yeah. But we know that people are more successful when they have case management once they've got the roof over their heads. So is that something that
it is something
that that is going to happen in connection with that program or with that money?
So the person who was housed, they got housed, like I said, about 40 minutes away. And we identified other social supports down there. We made sure that they still had our phone numbers. We still provided some assistance with their car repair. So all those steps to help them feel successful once they moved into their place. The community up at the winter housing program, we know that one person just took a night to go visit them this past weekend. So real friendships are being made. So that we are encouraging that when that's a healthy relationship. And when a person finds housing around here, then they certainly would never be cut off from our case management services, just like any other Northglenn resident. And then if they find housing in Westminster or Thornton or Federal Heights, we know people that serve all those different areas to continue case management as well.
Okay, that was the piece I was looking for. I should have been more specific around, if we're transferring this 15,000 to Denver Rescue Mission, are they then going to provide the case management?
Denver Rescue Mission does not provide the case management, but Jamie and I do, and then we would connect that person to appropriate resources if it wasn't still us when they moved in.
Okay.
And it is true, the Housing First model is a fantastic model, but looking at what we have going right now, it's not exactly a Housing First because the person really does have to have their own resources to stand on their own 2 feet before they can move in, because they're going through any other housing application process just like any other resident would. So they really do have to prove that they have the resources to move into those places.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Walker?
Just excuse me, 2 quick questions. So let's say we reallocate this money to the Denver Rescue Mission and they use it for the deposits for the apartment. And let's say that person after a year and a half does find housing. I know the deposits are going to be different for different apartments and things like that. What happens to that money? Is it going to get reallocated back to Denver, refunded, or is the participant going to get a check for the deposit when they leave, like most apartment tenants do? What's going to?
That would be most likely the case.
It would be refunded back to Denver Rescue Mission. Will it be used for the same program, or?
No, it would most likely be going back to that individual. So it's it's a fund to that person's housing.
Okay.
And at that point, it is released from Denver Rescue Mission. As far as I can understand it from Metro Denver, it's a release of funds to that person for that cause, not that pot of money. I think it would be really confusing because then the Denver Rescue Mission would be partly signing on to that lease with that person.
I mean, so is there any like length of residency requirement? I mean, more than 2 or 3 months before. I mean, if we reallocate the money, technically we could run out of it in a couple of months.
Well, if we ran out of the money in a couple of months, that would mean we're getting a lot of people housed, which would be awesome.
I know, but
and that would be a great thing for me. But I could also go back and look at the Denver Rescue Mission because they already run this program. We would just be putting that $15,000 into that program, saying an added requirement would be that the person is referred from the winter housing program. So we would have to look at what they already have in place.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Mullica?
Yeah, so my question's about that 15,000 as well. So you said that SWAP doesn't need it anymore.
I'm going to bring Rupa up for this one.
Yeah, so from my understanding with the county, I'll just be frank with you, so I don't think that they really want to go through the MOU process. So last year when council allocated that money, I think you all were one of the first to say yes, and then said, yes, we'll sign on to this MOU, but it took a very long time for all the other cities to also sign on to that. So with the contribution that municipalities were making in comparison to how much the program costs, I don't think it was really worth it for the county to pursue that with municipalities anymore because they have the funding, honestly, to fund it themselves. So with that $15,000, it was our opportunity to say, hey, so council wanted this $15,000 to go towards homelessness services. So why not it go towards an identified barrier that we have with our own program? So it's not that SWAP is not going to be available anymore. It's just that the county's not going to pursue asking money from municipalities anymore.
And then my next question is so with the winter housing program that's been going on, I mean, it has been a great opportunity for our city. Are we going to have an option, or what opportunities are we going to have available for next winter? Because that's always one of the things that we've been stressing on is how do we find that emergency winter housing? And, it's great that we've been having these beds now, but what's going to happen next year, or any ideas?
That's a really good question. So this is also being looked at by Adams County. I know Commerce City is looking at a couple of different options. And then Denver Rescue Mission keeps giving tours of what we're doing here in Northglenn because they really like the model, what they're calling an intimate model here in Northglenn because it does provide that sense of case management. The SWAP program is fantastic on keeping people off the streets and providing life-saving shelter. It does not provide case management, and that is because oftentimes if we are currently working with someone here in Northglenn, and then all of a sudden we have to put them in a hotel in Commerce City, Jamie and I are not driving back and forth to Commerce City to work with that resident. So a lot of times, the SWAP program is really appropriate for people who do not have jobs, they do not have access to or responsibilities in a certain geographical location, because it is really disruptive that way. So looking at a model that provides stability every day really does allow people to start focusing on what else they can be doing while not worried about where they're going to be sheltering that evening. All I know is that organizations, it's captured a lot of people's attention, different municipalities' attentions, the county's attention, the Denver Rescue Mission as a whole's attention. So we are fielding a lot of questions regarding how can this be replicated and what would the cost be? Because if you looked at my numbers, it comes to if ours was fully occupied for these until March 31st, and the full budget is used, then it's $77 per night per person, which is just slightly over what it takes to, because if you put two people in a hotel, even if that hotel is $100 to $120 per night, that's being funded, then it's still only $50 to $60 per person per night. And then sometimes you have triple occupancy in those hotels. So looking at the benefits of bringing in the case management and the forward momentum you get with clients, and then the price of the different sheltering options.
Okay. Well, yeah, so that's one of the biggest things that I just worry about, because I feel like, we've had this tremendous opportunity, and it's been able to meet at least this council's very strong goal of making sure that we have that winter housing. And we've been able to make it bigger than we anticipated, but now I'm worried about what next year is going to bring us. With that $15,000 reallocation, I'd like to hear what some of my other council members have to think about that. One of the things that I always want to be really careful about is how the city grants money out, and that's, outside agency funding, any of the above. Who are we giving money to and why? And how, we want to make sure that the money that the city is giving out benefits the most residents as possible, and has the greatest impact for our community. And so I think that this could be a potential use for this money. If it wasn't reallocated to the Denver Rescue Mission, what would we do with it?
That's a good question. I don't have
Do
an
you have
answer
any other
tonight.
great ideas? Okay, just throwing
Right
that out
now, financially, I don't have any other barriers. We have, we are pretty well funded with our transportation because we use Adams County's LIFT program, which they just expanded as well to sheltered residents. It used to only be able to be for unsheltered residents. We have access to the winter housing program. So one question I get is it fully maxed out? Do we need to increase bed? And the answer is no. We are not maxing out our bed space, because when people are coming in, like Jamie said, our number one reason for exiting people is the attendance issue. And so we constantly have a rotating, and it's not that those people aren't welcome back. They just need to recommit themselves to the program that they've signed on for, because otherwise it's not an appropriate place for them to be. Last week was a brutal week, weather speaking, and I don't know what we would have done without that winter housing program. We had a lot of people with frostbite. We had a lot of PD drop-off. So my data that I reported on today went through February 15th, which doesn't touch last week. Last week was brutal. And with the emergency drop-offs, we actually extended it to 24-hour service for 3 days because we had some people medically fragile enough that they could not leave the shelter until we found an appropriate placement for them. And so working many hours, we were able to find appropriate placement, but that person otherwise was just wheeled out onto the sidewalks with no place to go. So I don't, but all of that, the only barrier that we are seeing right now is that our residents, our guests, our clients are, they're getting their jobs, they're saving the money, And sometimes we don't even know it. I had one resident say to me, he said, "You told me to save all this money. I saved this money. What do you want me to do with it?" so that's good.
Great.
Yeah, it's still not enough for first, last, and deposit, but it is. He did it, and he did it in a really short amount of time. So they are doing it, but housing is a beast when it comes to finding the appropriate housing and then immediately having that money. So we work closely with a low-income property here in Northglenn, and every week we get an update on their affordable income units. And every week it's different because that's how quickly, or we'll say, what about apartment 265? It was available yesterday. Nope, it's taken. So when you see an opportunity, if you're not getting that opportunity, oftentimes it's gone if you're having to wait for applications and paperwork and approvals and stuff like that. So
Thank you.
It's by far my largest one right now, our largest one.
Well, I'd like to weigh in on the 15,000. I think I understand the need for the money to go to the Denver Rescue Mission, and I believe that through this partnership, they've shown themselves to be extremely filled with integrity. And so I have absolutely no reservation about that. I think it's an appropriate use of the funds, and I understand why it needs to be managed by them. A couple questions I have is I believe, have extended our agreement with Continuum, which pushed out kind of the need for the rec center. Have we pushed out the closure date?
That'll be discussed later this evening. So in executive session, we'll be.
Oh, got it. Okay. I would propose that we do. I know, we talk about it as the winter housing program, but the services that you're providing, I believe are kind of seasonal. Like, they're not seasonal. I think they're year-round. And I think it would be a lovely thing to keep going and not push people out onto the streets that have been, safe and secure and making such good progress. I so appreciate the data that you brought tonight. That was incredible. It was very clear, huge celebrations. I mean, one person housed is a huge deal, and I know you feel that way as well. So to lose that momentum because we hit a deadline is concerning. So I would love to see if we could utilize that building. That'd be great. If not, I would love to see us continue this in a new location, because it has been, through all of your work, really well organized, really well done, such a service to the people that are in our community, that I think I would just hate to see it just end. So I look forward to those conversations because I would like to continue those. But as far as the 15,000, I think it makes perfect sense. I mean, that last deposit, that's a heavy burden on anybody. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to me. Councilmember Brown?
I'm wondering, I was reading through some of the comments from the live forum that we did before we opened it up. And I'm wondering, is there any information as far as numbers, if the police had to be called because of activity,
In the packet.
Okay.
It is. That's a good question. From December 15th to February 15th, there were no calls for service regarding safety. There have been no calls for complaints from residents. There were 3 medical calls for 2 different individuals. Last week, that number rose to 3 different 3 all together, with 5 different medical calls.
I think that's information that we need to get out to our constituents, because it was a very successful program, and that was one of the ongoing themes of the complaints, was that it was going to increase crime, it was going to, do everything. How would we go about getting that information out, Heather? An update in the connection?
So one of the things that we are planning on doing, since March 31st is coming up, and depending on future conversations with council is to have a community meeting to give an update, to share any other plans that council may want to consider as well after we discuss it with you all. So there's definitely, we definitely want to share the good news with our residents and also address any concerns or questions they still may have. And that is a good idea about maybe doing something in the connection as well, in case people can't come to a meeting. So we
A
definitely will.
celebration, you know, of how much this helped our community and the other people within within our area. I have noticed less homelessness over in the Safeway shopping center. It's not quite so daunting, and it could be the weather, it could be some of the positive things that you've done, but I think that we should celebrate the fact that we were able to make these changes and to help without any increase in crime, without any neighborhood complaints, just going on with our lives.
Thank you. I want to refer really quickly to the first page of the packet because there's a couple of things there that I noticed. The no calls for service to the rec center and the fact that, you know, having a shelter has greatly relieved the police department's burden. I had a question, well, and I love the fact that a couple of the drop-offs, they reunited with family members. But
Yeah, that was fun.
yeah,
actually.
that's fantastic. But I had a wondering, because one of the community concerns we had was the overflow and disruption to EB Rains. Were there any calls to service over there
Not
that were
I-
related?
Not that I know of. I don't think that we have that data ready right now.
Okay.
But working, Jamie and I both work in the police department every day, and we're usually let known when we're having calls for people experiencing homelessness. And so far, I don't think we've had an increase to the EB Rains area. And I know, yeah, anecdotally, we are working with quite a few people who live in that area of Northglenn.
I was just wondering, that was a concern.
But the reunification, I want to say, that comes with Jamie's case management skills. Like, she is really able to track down family members across the United States and engage with them to make sure that they have a welcoming place to land when they get there. So that's been great.
That's a gift. Thank you. That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I don't see any more hands. Anybody else want to weigh in at the final end here? No, just a huge thank you. We know how much work this is, and welcome, Jamie. It sounds like you're, doing an awesome job right away. But it's great. It was such a celebration, so thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to add real quickly,
yeah.
if I could, and I missed it, sorry, I meant to make a mention. You said one of the community involvement and all the volunteers. This has by far been one of the most exciting projects that I've ever received feedback on. People have sought me out, like if I was at like my kid's school event, they found me to tell me how excited they were about this, how they could help, I was at another appointment, where was I? Oh, I think I was actually at the clinic over at Kaiser, and somebody saw me and they're like, oh, you're in Northglenn City Council, oh my God, I can't believe what you're doing. Like, everyone is so excited about this. I have had some residents who are concerned about the long-term impacts of this, but I have not seen a project in the city that has gained so much enthusiasm from the public.
Yeah.
And so much support. So I don't know, thank you for all of your guys' hard work, and I hope it's something that we could somehow figure out how to continue moving forward, because it's had a huge impact.
When we started this, I was prepared for a lot of phone calls questioning statistics and calls for service and, wanting extra patrol around certain areas. And I've had nothing except for where can I donate? How can I get involved?
Yeah.
So it's been a really exciting thing to be a part of as well. Yep.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
So just to get clarification, for the $15,000 request, if there is council consensus to move forward with reallocating that, we could take that agreement between the city and Denver Rescue Mission and have the city manager approve it based on the dollar amount being under $50,000.
How do people feel? Yeah?
I support it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item, Northglenn Police Department Public Safety Presentation, and we get both Police Chief Jim May and Deputy Police Chief Randy Darlin. Hello.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Actually, we're following up on all this positive stuff. So I promise with the negatives, I'll come with 2 positives. How's that? If I can keep that going. I just wanted to, talk about one of the things with the homeless, especially for our officers tonight. Sometimes when we came across them on cold nights, we'd be tied up for a couple hours. And so it was very nice having that where we could give that warm handoff to the staff over there, and it's been just a great partnership. So great job. So I just wanted to put that out there too. So it's been a great program. So I know that many of you have heard from your residents that, the feeling or hearing about crime rates throughout, the state of Colorado, throughout our nation. But again, I think what we're going to try to do, I think we're attending all your ward meetings. So it'll be the deputy chief or myself that'll be there, or both. So Wednesday will be our first one in Ward 3 over at the Justice Center. But tonight, we just wanted to make sure that we kind of give you kind of like a preview of what we're going to talk about, and at the end of it, get your input of if there's something else that you would like to see. Maybe less talking from the chief, right? But no, tonight's, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. We're going to talk about some things that have caused us some headwinds over the last couple of years. So before we get into the stats, I think I just want to let you know at the end, we'll go, talk about stuff that's been impacting Northglenn and some of the processes that we're trying to do. So again, we're going to tie it all together, but I'll just turn it over to Randy right now, and he'll get started in all the numbers and stuff.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Good evening, council. So what I want to start to talk about is basically how crime is reported in Northglenn. Give you kind of an overview of how that works, right? And then how we compare crime between communities and across the country, so that everybody gets a similar look at how crime is reported and how it's measured across different jurisdictions. So crime categories are highlighted in this presentation. They're based on the National Incident-Based Reporting System, NIBRS. All right, and this is the Colorado Bureau of Investigations uses this reporting system to allow Colorado agencies to report crime and compare crime in consistent manners across jurisdictions. This is really a nationwide best practice, all right? So NIBRS is used by most communities across the country. They either use NIBRS or UCR or some combination of both. UCR is Unified Crime Reporting Statistics. So what NIBRS does is it really provides kind of a greater specificity for crime reporting. It collects more detailed information. It gives us comparisons between different types of data. And that process is, whether or not the crime is drug-related, what kind of relationship does the offender have to the victim, if there is a relationship between the individuals, as well as demographic and detail information. And it provides a greater analytic flexibility for departments across the country to really work through and use data as a tool in their crime-fighting strategies. So the numbers, when you look at Northglenn's crime statistics, where we're seeing increases are assaults, weapons violations, motor vehicle thefts, and theft of motor vehicle parts. Those are where we're seeing our biggest increases. And then I wanted to highlight weapons, calls for shots fired. While this isn't a crime statistic specifically, we wanted to look at it from a calls for service perspective because we're seeing about a 39% increase in that number of concerns of citizens calling in shots fired or what they believe to be shots fired calls for service. And that's over, that 39% is, when you look at this, you can look at it from year to year. So you're seeing 2020 versus 2021 crime statistics up there. And then you're also looking at it from a 2021 standpoint from the prior 5 years. And that's a good indicator for crime statistics. 3 to 5 years is kind of a norm to review crime statistics over a period of time so you can get a true level of how crime is ebbing and flowing in a community. So as you see, assaults in a five-year time frame are up 29.6%. That's a big number. It's about 70 assaults over last year. All right, so 2020 versus 2021, it's about 70 assaults greater. Weapons violation, it's increase of 9 weapons violation over the 5-year average. Motor vehicle thefts, this is where we're seeing really big numbers. It's 126 increased motor vehicle thefts. And the second big number is that 52 theft for motor vehicle parts. So when you see that, what you're really seeing there is catalytic converter theft. It's a huge increase across not just Northglenn, the entire Colorado metro area, and nationally. What you're seeing in Northglenn statistics, we're seeing in the entire metro area. Motor vehicle thefts are the highest they've been in Colorado history. They're very high across the Northglenn and metro area for Denver. And what we're seeing is that catalytic converter theft driving that piece of motor vehicle thefts. Where you're seeing some gains, and you look at robberies year to year, we're down a few robberies. Over the 5-year average, we're actually up 31%. Burglaries, we have a slight increase over the last year, but over a 5-year average, you're seeing a 1.5% decrease in burglaries. So statistically, our big increases, again, are assaults, motor vehicle theft, and theft of motor vehicle parts. So when we look at these numbers, when we look to contributing factors, there are many contributing factors, right? Experts argue about crime and why crime is up on a regular basis, right? What experts support unilaterally, pretty much, is that economic hardships and social disruption factors are big keys in seeing ebbs and flows and increase in crime. That leads us right into our COVID pandemic. It's definitely been a factor. It's definitely affected us on an economic standpoint. It's definitely affected us in the social disruption. The unemployment and change in employment work locations has driven this. Jail population reduction. We've pulled people out of the jail systems in order to, restrict COVID effects. Released many offenders, and then a circumstance which has not been common in the past. Anytime subjects had warrants or anything like that in their background, they would be taken into custody for failure to appear on any type of criminal charges. We're not really doing that for low-level offenses. If a subject has a warrant out right now and it's misdemeanor related, we're going to issue them another summons and have them a new court date and leave them out in the community. So there's no real consequence on failure to appear for minor offenses. Some of the felony offenses we're taking into custody, but even not all felony offenses. All right, so that's one of the issues that we're dealing with. And these are just some of the headwinds we're looking at. There's been some legislative considerations, the decriminalization of drug offenses. While this is helpful and useful in not clogging the jails with low-level narcotics offenses, it doesn't really address the addiction crisis that we still see in the communities, and it really doesn't affect that. And what we're seeing is that still drives criminal conduct. So the addiction crisis still drives that criminal conduct. Some changes to SB 217, not changes, but specifically SB 217, has caused attrition among law enforcement. And I'll show you a little bit later in this presentation just how that's affected Northglenn specifically. Prosecutions. When we look at almost a complete hold on prosecutions during the COVID pandemic, that backlog that's created and the process of moving those individuals through the criminal justice system has slowed, and that has increased our crime. And then significantly less consequence for crime just immediately. There's no more hot stove approach to any kind of criminal conduct. It just takes a lot longer to get through the system currently under the circumstances that we're in. Although we're coming out of that, we're still reaping that time frame in the prosecution process. And then probation, with more and more people being offered probation for any kind of criminal conduct, that becomes less effective, less efficiently effective as far as how we manage those probationers. So there's some of the things we talked about. The data shows an increase in crime conditions locally and nationwide. The pandemic has created financial pressures, as well as on household income, as well as multiple policy changes to the criminal justice system. The drug addiction is what I've talked about. Mental health, the increase in need coupled with kind of a reduction in services, especially during the COVID timeframe. We certainly didn't have the mental health services that were really needed while we saw an increase in need for mental health services. And these, again, are not unique to Northglenn. This is what we're seeing across the metro area and across the country in general. So with homelessness and different issues, we're seeing that visibility of homelessness a little bit more often. That really relates to your disturbances, the visibility of the homeless in the community, the unwanted party calls, the drug offenses, and kind of the moral offenses, urination and defecation in public. Those are what we get our complaints on. And all it's done is created that sense of and perception of higher crime in the area. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's higher crime related to those particular incidents, but it definitely creates that perception. And we've dealt with it at some of our community meetings thus far. When we look at calls for service, 45,000 calls for service during 2021, which is up a couple thousand or about 1,500 from 2020, but down over our 5-year average, about a 7.5% decrease over our 5-year average. When you look at this, this is about 124 calls for service per day. And this is really where our officers focus their attention. The majority of their attention is on calls for service, right? We've got to manage that as our number one priority. So we're seeing that increase. But again, 124 calls per day, that's the average, and about 41 calls per shift when you break it up across the 3 shifts that work over day in, day out. When you look at traffic, and traffic is our number one complaint at every one of the community meetings I've ever attended, and at almost every single time I get handed, have a conversation with a citizen, traffic is the number one complaint we have. But actually where you see here, 2020 started to reduce those traffic complaints, primarily because less people on the road, right? You started to see that uptick in 2021 with 1,273. Traffic accidents again started to climb. But our traffic enforcement has increased during that time frame as well. And this is with just 2 of our officers being dedicated to that traffic team, and we're working to push that up to 4. So as we move to increase that team and move to increase that enforcement effort, you're going to see that same concern. It's not going to change as far as our residents are concerned. It's a very, very popular concern among our residents, but we can continue to increase our enforcement there and continue to help work on our traffic safety. Our top 5 accident locations are no surprise to anyone, right? 104th in Huron, 104th in Washington, 120th in Washington, 112th in Washington, and 120th in Claude. No surprises there. All our major intersections and our major intersections that join us with our neighboring communities. So no surprises in that statistic. When we move to the question of, are there less police in Northglenn? The real short answer to this is no. Okay, there's not less police presence in the city of Northglenn. We maintain a minimum staffing level to ensure public safety and services are sustained throughout the public, regardless of what our staffing levels are. We work to maintain our minimum staffing levels, and we'll be very creative to make that happen. We'll split shifts, we'll do whatever we need to make sure we have a minimum staffing level out on the street at all time. As far as our staffing levels, budget increases between 2018 and 2022. The council has been very supportive of the police department, provided additional budgetary funds. Our current budget for 2022 is 78 sworn officers, 23.5 professional staff, for a total of 101.5 officers or staff. What are the challenges we face to staffing? Yes, there are definitely challenges to staffing. The COVID impacts have definitely affected us. They've affected us tremendously within our rank and file. Our officers, the majority of the department at this point has had COVID to some level and have been off for considerable amounts of time. Multiple officers have had COVID on multiple occasions. Recruiting. It's been difficult to recruit. We're continuing to move through that process. I think we're doing a pretty strong job in this particular year. We're ready to put about 4 more people into the academy in early April, and then hopefully with the applicants we have, we'll enter another group of applicants into the July academy as well. And here's that turnover piece, which is very, very telling. 29.5% of the department has turned over in the last 2 years. It's a pretty large number. Now, that's not 29.5%, of course, below where we would be. It's 29.5% turnover. So people have gone and people have come into the organization. Right, currently, our focus is on meeting the goals of the 360 assessment. Really working towards that full budgeted amount of officers, sworn and professional staff, because the professional staff, absolutely imperative to the success of the department. They manage those duties that free up officers to really focus on proactive policing in the community. So with that effort, we hope to be full staff later this year. Now, even though we're full staff, hopefully we'll get to that full staff level. It's still really a period of time before those officers are out on their own. They've still got to go through a training academy. We've got to go through our own in-house academy with those officers, and then we've got to get them trained through FTO. It's about a full year to get them up to that status. So those are the numbers that we've basically presented to you today. I'm going to turn it back over to Chief real quick, and he's going to talk about what we're doing as we move forward.
Well, I think Tamara alluded to it earlier about, the other COVID thing was all the COVID babies coming out. So we had 8. They definitely need to find more hobbies and a better solution to stress management. And so I can't really, I was talking to Corey, hoping I can do a police issue of babies, but I don't think I could do that either. It has to be police issue. But so what are we doing? I mean, we're having all this, some of the numbers are up. As an organization, we're dealing with some headwinds that we need to, get through. So one of the things we're, going back and having a blueprint, and that blueprint goes back to the 360 assessment, developing our strategic plan that we're going to bring forward to you here, I think in a month and a half, right? So you guys will see that, how that's rolled out, some of the things that we've been working on, and I'll cover a little bit of that tonight. Again, and I think the big one, as you've seen with CREW, also our CCPP, that strong connection to community is also very important. And, before I get started in my next slide on implementing the 360, I want to talk about one thing when we look at, it's kind of like a crime triangle, right, on how we're going to impact crime. And on that, Corey always uses the 3-legged stool. I like using the crime triangle. So the crime triangle for me is on one side of that triangle would be the offenders. On the other side would be the victims or residents, and then the location. You remove one of those sides or impact one of those sides, you're going to reduce crime, right? So with the headwinds with offenders, I mean, some of it, again, reducing, some of the crimes tomorrow, right? Tomorrow takes effect, one that's just heartbreaking to me. So if Jay, you call me and you see someone breaking into your car, we go over there, we arrest them, right? Or her, we arrest that individual and we're patting them down. We find about 2 ounces of drugs on them. We find a firearm on them. We run them real quick. They're a felon, right? Breaking into your car. Well, breaking into a car, March 1st, it goes from a felony to a misdemeanor, right? If it's not a victim, it's not a VR crime, a victim crime, and felons in possession of a firearm, it goes from a felony to a misdemeanor. So really, we're cutting that individual summons and letting them go. So I think it sends a bad message to our community when something like this happens, when the reduction of those occurs. So, and I'll talk about that. That's some of the things that we're doing. So we can't really affect the offender where we're going out and making those arrests, putting them in jail, where they're seeing the judge, even those for drugs, right? We're reducing those crimes, but the addictions are still there. Them to try to get the money to pay for that addiction is we're seeing in line with drugs, motor vehicle theft. So they're all kind of linked together, but they're not getting the help they need. I know the governor just recently said, we want to really put some money in that infrastructure. We're not seeing it right now, where we can take these individuals where they get help for their addiction, get help, having consequence for committing those crimes. So that's some of the headwinds. And, so my ask of you in the future and of the legislation committee, I will make you aware if there's bills that I think that's concerning the public safety, I'll bring it to your attention. And if you guys here have a question, please, myself, It's nice having an attorney, as a deputy chief on board, so that's always nice too. So his input, and plus, of course, Corey, I'm always calling him for input. But again, these are some of the headwinds, but some of the things that we do. So we can't put the resources and stuff to that side of the triangle, right? So we have to come up with other ways. And those other ways is we're going to use technology on identifying individuals, because it's on a weekly basis that people aren't complying when they, if we do a traffic stop, they're not complying on that. They run from us all the time. So we have to figure other ways how we're going to catch those individuals. So where we really want to focus on is, the victims. They say 40% of victims are victimized again. But I also want to put in there in parentheses our residents, right? So I think we're going to use, again, rolling out communication, rolling out education. I think that's going to be some of the things that we really need to focus on to really impact crime in our community, and those partnerships. And the way we're doing that, one of the things from 360 that we have in place right now that you guys understand, again, our staffing levels. Council, approved the 7-year plan for our council plan. So that's really important to make sure that occurs. The restructuring of the police organization, so we're more efficient, more effective on how we do our business. So, our span of control, we have a very young department. So really trying to train those officers up in tactics and deployment is very important over the next couple of years. Again, we talked about the crew, the body cameras, that has been huge. And then also we just finished up our dash cams for our cars. And part of that technology, again, that's using technology on there is the license plate reader, where those cars, as they're driving around, will identify plates that individuals that have warrants, individuals, if that car comes back as a stolen car, if they're driving through parking lots, they'll, identify that. So the recovery of stolen cars, we can happen, or we identify it and we can sit on that car, and before they get in and run from us, we can take that individual, make an arrest before they get into that car. Again, we're seeing a lot of positive stuff with the CCPP board. We're really I'm really excited about this and coming up over the next year or so, some of the pathways that we're going to get them involved in, and reaching out to our community and making that happen. I think that is also a huge benefit for us on how we can impact those and bringing those individuals that feel they don't have a voice to the table. So that's, again, in our community partnerships. I mean, you guys the city has just an incredible relationship with our mosque, some of the other communities and everything else, our businesses within our community. We do education and training for them on how they can reduce the impact of crime of shoplifting and auto thefts and car break-ins in their lots as well. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do. Our community relations department, doing crime prevention through environmental design is also one of those other things, how we can really focus on that location side of that triangle. An intersection, for intersections with the traffic team coming on board, that's where we focus our resources, right? Again, traffic complaints in neighborhoods and speeding is all that. So one of the things too is recognizing no need for speed that's, that our city's doing. Identifying a lot of times in the neighborhoods on those streets that we get complaints on, it's not a speeding problem, it's an individual problem. So there's someone down the street that's doing the speeding constantly. So if we identify those individuals, we knock on their door, and that's kind of very impactful. But again, if we have our high accident locations, again, that one that pops up that I'm hearing about, especially for Ward 2, 120th and Claude, right? So, and that's going to be fixed by, traffic engineering, but still putting resources out there to make sure we slow people down and take care of that. All right. Some of the things too is getting people involved, right? What can they do? And that's one of the things that we want to do is inspire them. Is the more you get involved in your community, if that's through a neighborhood watch program, having those extra eyes, taking advantage of some of the technology that we have. Our own city manager helped us with a crime and caught it on the Ring, doorbell stuff, so that we can do that. Also, we'll roll out how to sign up for that, get involved in that too. So we're really going to try to utilize the technology out there for us, but also engaging the community, starting up. COVID's been tough. We haven't had, block captains or block captain meetings, for a couple of years now. So we really try to make that happen again for us so we can really engage the community. So that's, the more eyes out there for us, the better. All right. And then the SEPTED, I think that's I'm all over the place. You can just keep going. They know, they'll have questions at the end, so. All right, so I talked about that. The Citizens Academies, we're also rolling out the Teen Academy. We're also trying to engage our youth in our community, make sure we bring them to the table. And that's a great recruiting tool for us in the future, right? So you bring them on board, they get involved, they become, part of our CPAN group, volunteering and everything that they can to give back to their community is very important. That's that attachment, to Northglenn. And then, really pushing out to our residents, like, hey, one thing that I think cities do a horrible job, and this is across the whole country, right? I think the last number I heard, only 3% of police officers come from their own community. I think we're probably a little higher than that here in Northglenn. But again, I think that's the best thing. We can reach out to the people in our community, start engaging them in high school and bringing them forward and then putting them through the academy. And then I think that's the best way. Or people moving into the cities like, hey, because I still say, even with everything going on and how, the last couple of years have gone, being a police officer, and I mean this from my heart, is the most honorable, noble profession you can do. And I just want to inspire those individuals in our community and my officers, their contacts and everything else, but, to inspire those to be a part of the Northglenn team. So, but if you know anybody, send them our way. We're always recruiting, so. So, and then the other thing, this will be a slide that we'll roll out to, so, that we can answer some of the questions that we heard or, that Heather told us about that you guys had and, concerns. So there's some of the questions. Here, I think the best thing is maybe, if you guys have any other questions or concerns that you want us to address, we can do that as well. Do you want to take this one?
So really here, our goal with these community meetings is to, I'm sorry, I've been coughing all day and I just put the mask on because it's so frustrating to cough when people are around. Everybody gets nervous, and I understand. So the goal is basically to work with these community meetings to really set, the big picture, in a reasonable amount of time, not overwhelm the community with statistics, because we can certainly bring them all kinds of statistics and overwhelm them with that. We want to give them a chance to ask questions. We want to give them a chance to communicate with us in a very meaningful way, and that's really the goal of that particular meeting. We'll have plenty of statistics for them. That's never a shortage, right? We'll be able to tell them where the crime is, what's going on with the crime, how we're managing it, and what we're trying to do to address it. But we want to be, I just don't want to throw numbers at it, right? We want to talk about, ways to abate it, ways that they can get involved. So are there any other questions that you see as we progress through this process that you'd like us to be answering in those community meetings? We'd like your input, like your feedback on that. And we'll be providing this public presentation once at each ward meeting throughout the year. So we'll do every one of the ward meetings, and then what additional communications really would you like us to involve in those meetings, right? So we can wait until after some of the meetings have gone on. We can take feedback now, or we can take feedback both times. Basically, we want to try to reach out to the community residents as best we can and provide as much data as they really want to talk about, but provide really more kind of the overall broad picture of what's going on so they can understand how we're fighting the crime, how we're working through the issues that we see, and what we can do to kind of serve the community as best we can. But one of the things, and it was a key issue on one of the slides before, is we really want to let the community know to use the police department as their official crime information location, right? They want to use our Facebook. They want to use our Twitter feeds. They want to use our communications, because there's so much misinformation out there on social media. And so often we're able to just quash the concerns because there's just not validity to the basic message that's being put out there, or something's being reported as a very serious incident, and in reality it was not a very serious incident. Just because you see 4 or 5 cars at a location doesn't mean that the elevation of that incident was this high, right? It could have been something minor. It could have been something that just needed additional officers for a moment, and then it was quelled. So we want to use that communication tool in a very, very meaningful way so that we can address that with the residents. And, some of the other pieces of that puzzle were that code red, and especially with the Marshall fires, we really saw the need for code red to be pushed and really to just absolutely increase the use of that ability. A lot of our landlines have that, and that's a good portion of our residents, but a lot, even me, I did not have code red. My wife had to get knocked on the door and told to evacuate by a neighbor. So just wasn't something that when I came into the community, I got involved in. It wasn't even something I knew about until I got into Northglenn PD. And it wasn't something I thought about even in my own instance. And we were evacuated from our residence in Louisville. So it's something that we need to really increase, and it's not automatic for cell phones. We need to get our residents involved in that so that they can get accurate, timely, critical information when it comes to crime and communications in that regard. Because it's not just a crime situation. It could be any emergency management situation, and that code red's going to be really important. So with that, Chief and I'll take any questions you have.
Councilmember Brown?
Good afternoon or good evening. I thought this was a great presentation. Fortunately for me, I'm hearing less of criminal activity in Ward 2 than we were doing probably closer to the end of 2020. But the question that I get in regards to Ward 1, and I would call it more, I think it's Ward 1, it would be Old Northglenn, down by, help me, Larson Park and over in the older houses over there in that area. And it is gossip, Do we know if there has been an increase in crime or in gang activity in Northglenn? It's a theory that's out there, especially down in that section of Ward 1 that I spoke about. Are we having an influx of gang activity, or is that even something that you can speak to?
I can take that.
And I think you're going to get that question in our ward meeting.
Yeah, so statistically, it's very difficult to measure gang activity directly related to crime. You have to have more information than just, let's say, a shots fired call. I'll use that as an example. Shots fired call may be gang related. It may have nothing to do with gang related crime. And as we do the investigation, we can find sometimes there is a gang nexus to criminal activity. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a gang crime specific. It may mean that a gang member is involved in that crime, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it had any gang nexus or any relationship to gang activity in the immediate vicinity. It could just be victim related to victim has gang ties or offender has gang ties. From a crime statistic standpoint, it's a difficult measure. It's a difficult situation to measure. You have to have the offender and you have to have additional information through investigation to obtain that information to directly tie it to a gang nexus. We are not seeing a lot of calls for service that are gang related, having gang information tied to the call for service. And we're not seeing direct association to gang activity such as, colors and clothing and different type of gang monikers. We aren't seeing increased tagging or graffiti that is showing any kind of gang nexus immediately in the community. So it's really, it's difficult to answer your question very cleanly, council member, but it is definitely something that we work to identify in our investigative process. And it's not a simple, clean answer, but we're not seeing anything in the calls for service and in the, direct crime statistics that support it.
The only thing that I can relate kind of is the car clubs, right? And the speed, that we have across the metro area. So again, this year, we're gonna also, Adams County's rolling out their speed task force again, that will put resources to assist with that program. So the communication up, but that's the only thing that I can see. And there's people that say, again, trying to take it right back to one gang against another gang. It's not like it was probably in the early 90s, when we really had the year of violence, back in 92. So we're not seeing that where you had the, Bloods and the Crips and that kind of stuff. So it's, it's more up in this area. We just haven't seen it. So.
So there's more of a social media tie to criminal conduct that's not necessarily tied directly to gangs. Just social media discourse that can drive conflict.
Can I ask you a question related to the car gangs? Maybe that's not the phrase, car meets, whatever they call them. Car clubs. I'm assuming you know where they all are, because I know where they all are. I have a teenager who tells me where they're all meeting up. Because younger teenagers are obsessed with cars, and so they go to see this car show right before the chaos begins. But if I have intel, who do I call? Because I was at the gas station one day on 120th, and they all came running right in. And it was loud as can be, and they were revving up and staging, and I was like, I don't know, is it a 911 call? It didn't feel like a 911 call. It felt like I was tattling. And so I was like, what's the tattling number? I mean, really, because I kind of wanted to be like, hey, I found them all. Do you want to come get them?
number.
Yeah. I mean, is that something that you want residents to report, I guess, is my question.
If they're starting to congregate, you bet.
Okay.
So just, call us so we can go over there. Because some of the things too, it's tough catching them because, on the highway, you've seen it, right? They'll come out and they'll jump on 104th.
Yeah.
And go north or 120th. They'll go north. Some of their staging areas is Target, the RTD park and ride, the auto zone, where some of those are in the marketplace. So as soon as they start coming together, we throw resources at it and then we start issuing tickets for altered suspension, lighting, their altered exhaust systems, right?
Okay.
So those are some of the things that we, tools we use to get it. I have, actually our traffic officer right now is looking at different ordinances throughout the metro area on how, what kind of success are they seeing there. I can tell you, Commerce City just told me that, they're showing up in their cities, 500 cars at a time, taking over parks, setting up almost like big music, boom boxes, everything else. So their city passed an ordinance, well, if it gets that out of hand, you can shut down the whole park, and they start towing vehicles at that point. Once they start towing vehicles, because they have a lot of pride in those things, they start leaving, right? But again, it's pushed around, so that's why Adams County's putting together this task force so we can keep on them and try to control that. Because the other thing too is there's fatalities where these kids are racing, going 120 miles an hour up the highway, and they lose it. So, for safety reasons for our residents and everything else, we do need to get ahead of this, especially this summer. I just have a feeling it's going to be bad. So, and then,
Meredith.
then you guys hear it for loud, the exhaust and everything else. You guys hear from the community members on Washington and Huron that it's loud. What are they doing about it? Or the highway you get to hear about. So we really want to impact that because I know that is definitely a concern for our residents.
Becky, did you want to add in?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to ask one more question. Back in the day, Northglenn historically had less crime. It felt, at least the fact that it felt like we had less crime, that we were safer in our community. I would like to know a 3-year average like you did in the slide for traffic versus a 5-year average. I don't know if it'd make that big of a difference, but I think I would like to look at it over the 3 years. So if somebody,
I gave you the 2-year.
If you're looking at page 10, it does say 3 years. So what are you asking for, Becky?
that is traffic. I am looking for
Oh.
Page 6.
Got
Yes,
it. Page 9?
on page 6 of 21 on our
6 of
crime
21, the
statistics.
big pack.
Oh, got it.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
So is there any chance you could toss me an email on that? Because that would help me answer some of the questions that I get. You know what I'm saying?
So you just want 19, 20, and 21?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'd like to compare it because I really feel like an intake in our crime started just about 19 before the evil vid came around.
Okay. Councilmember Lukeman Hiramasa?
First of all, I think this is much needed to have PD be present at all these board meetings. Because as you know, and you've been to some of our board meetings, residents have a lot of questions, and I think a lot of that is because they don't have all of the information in terms of what they can do to help keep our community safer, and also what the PD is currently doing. So I think a lot of this boils down to, that whole community policing model and being more transparent. One of the things that just recently came up, and a lot of what I'm hearing, is how difficult it was to just find like the PD monthly report. So things like that residents can, find a little bit more easily and help them keep apprised in terms of what PD is doing, I think is important. And obviously social media is a big part of that right now. And I saw on here, I know this is something that came out of the 360 assessment, but I'm just curious, like where are we in terms of the hiring process to separate those positions of crime analysts versus the PIO, because that's important too, to have allow the PIO to focus more on those social media communications, or any type of communications with the community, in terms of things like just what the community can do to prevent crime on their own. I think having videos pushed out from PD on the social media websites would be amazing. Would really help connect the community and get more involved in terms of what they do. But I'm just curious about that, and also the 2 additional traffic officers and what the timeline is looking for. I know it takes a long time to build officers, but I'm just curious where we are in that.
So we reopened the crime analyst position, okay? Several dropped out of that. And so we reopened that, try to get that filled. I totally agree with you on the community education when it comes to really looking, because people don't think about it. Making sure you don't have any valuables in your car at night, right? Making sure that you have good lighting out in front of your house. I think, some of that's very important. Don't leave your car running in the morning and warm it up. I mean, we've had a lot of stolen cars that way as well. So again, trying to give them ideas on how they can target harden their properties, and also make their properties or themselves less, not like a victim, right? So they're up there taking those precautions, where, an offender will come by and say, yeah, I'm not, that one's too risky, or that's going to take too long to do that. I mean, people put clubs in, or, auto shut-off stuff in their vehicles, so where, as soon as you put a gear, it dies. So those things, that's just a great deterrent, for the offenders. So hopefully we have something on board in the next couple months, for that crime analyst. So again, it's really important, because Renee doing that community training, she's excellent at it. But also, when we're trying to be a data-driven organization of where we're going to deploy resources, we need her there as well, right? So we're looking at all of that. We're looking at our records management system on how that data is pulled. So that individual's, the skill sets that they have coming in is very important. So we have that, that information we need to make good decisions on our officers, and where we deploy that. Coming to traffic officers. So right now have a lateral that's probably going to come to us by summer, and that's a motor officer. And so that's going to be able to put that individual on. I have another officer that as soon as the schools start opening up here, I think it's next month, they'll go to school. So by summer, I hope we have at least 3 of our motor officers on board, and hopefully by the end of summer, we have that 4th. Our hiring right now, it's looking pretty good. We're going to be sending 4 officers to the April Academy. This was something that's normally not available to us. It's normally just the Sheriff's Department has the April Academy just for his people. I called him several months ago and saying, I really need bodies, and he said, hey, I'll give you 4 slots. So I really appreciate the sheriff on taking those bodies. I wish he would just take more of our prisoners. No, but again, with COVID and everything else, he had to shut down quite a bit. But yeah, so we have 4. Then we have, I think, another 4, I believe, in the lateral process that we're going to bring on board. And then this summer we have, I think, 5 slots down in Highlands Ranch and 5 at Adams County. So we should have plenty of opportunity to hire. We only need 12, but I'll plan for as many as I can get.
Councilmember Malika?
Well, first of all, it's really exciting to hear about your staffing and how you could be fully staffed. We've been working on a plan for a really long time to try and get you as much support and all the officers that you need. And so that's exciting that, we're getting there, a little bit at a time is great. And so, yeah, first off, that's just amazing. I really do appreciate the statistics that you guys pulled together, because I think it really just helps communicate the message that we've been hearing a lot throughout the community. It's tough to get a phone call from a resident whose car just got stolen, and, they're upset. You understand that, and it really impacts their family and their life. And so, these are, all of these numbers are real people. They're real, just our neighbors, really. And so we just need to remember that, the impact is real, the perception is real. And, having this conversation with all of the wards, I think, is a great step in the right direction, just so people, could feel heard. And you guys are going to be there to help share, your perspective of not only the situation, but how you guys are responding. So I think that just alone, these conversations are going to be really beneficial to our community. I did have one quick question, and I'm not sure if you could answer this or not, but for contributing factors, you, under the second bullet, under the COVID pandemic, you have jail population reduction efforts and restrictions on jailable offenses. So with the jail population reduction efforts, I'm assuming that was associated with the COVID pandemic. Are those lifting at all, or is that something that's been consistent still?
I think, again, for us, they reduced the bed population about 500 in Adams County. At one time, it was all the way up to, I think it was like 12 or 1,400.
Okay.
So what they did
move
was they
closer
reduced
to the microphone?
type of calls and crimes that we could actually put there.
Oh, you need to go to the mic, chief.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
So they restricted the type of crimes that they would take. So if it was a misdemeanor or warrants and that kind of stuff, they wouldn't take them. We had to release them, from here. We'd process them and then release them out of the Northglenn.
Okay.
So again, they're allowing more. If we called the sheriff and said, hey, this is the 4th or 5th time that we arrested this person for motor vehicle theft, and they still haven't been, to the court system, then he's like, yeah, bring them up. But again, until they get to that point where they're actually, the intake gets higher, and it's been challenging. That part of it's been challenging. So
Do you know if the county is increasing their intake?
they're now at 800 beds.
Oh, okay. So they have
So,
increased.
so we're up 300, hopefully, and he seemed nervous about it, right? But we'll just, and again, he said we can call him if he has cases that we need to get him in, or if the municipal judge needs to get in, we can call him and get an exemption from that. But a lot of deputies turn you away right at the door, so.
All right.
And then the other thing too, it overloads the court system, so it's like a domino effect. So actually, Heather and I are meeting with our district attorney next week, I believe, for lunch, and just talk about, because he's getting all these cases that are backlogged, probably a year or so. So they have to trim, the cases they take. So they take the ones that, hey, we know we're going to get this, and then some of the other ones, there's zero consequence for those individuals for some of those crimes that they're not taking, right? So, right now it's just and you talked about our residents. We're a hardworking community, blue collar community, and one thing that breaks my heart too is that a stolen car, if it's less than $2,500, it's a misdemeanor. And to me, that's just a slap in the face to our individuals, because they're our minimum wage, and they're trying to make that. And then when they have their car stolen, they can't go out and buy another car. If they get their catalytic converter stolen, they can't go out and replace that. It's $1,000, $1,500.
Yeah.
So when we look at that, it's like we just, again, and 400, almost 400 auto thefts we had last year. So we have to find ways on how we can, and nobody's, once we light them up, they run. And again, for that, property crimes, we don't chase, because that's a bigger risk to our community. And the last thing we want to do is run a stolen car into a family of 4, right? So we have to use technology and other ways how we can impact and, remove those individuals, because they'll keep, I think Denver had a story of, they arrested someone 8 times or something like that and they never been through the court system yet. So that's tough. And that's the other stat, right? 10% of the people committing crimes, they're the ones that commit the majority of crimes in the community. So that's how you impact them. You got to take them off the street a little bit, so they get some type of, consequence for their action by the courts.
So I think that you bring up a really good point, and it brings me back to the statistics slide, is how many of these, any of these really are repeat offenders, or people who've done it more than once or twice or 3 times in our community? Do you have any information about how many of, how much of the crime are we seeing is from, just a couple of individuals who are doing it multiple times, or are these individuals, so I guess.
I think, and I think that's why it goes to that stat, 10% of people commit.
Yeah.
Was it, that high percentage of crimes, right? Because, Julie, you're not going to walk down the street and say, hey, that car's running, I think I'm going to jump in and take it, right?
I will not.
Because it's someone that has that, is at that comfort level or that need,
Yeah.
right? This is money for me, this, or instant money, that's why they do it. So, but I can look in, see if I can get some of that information.
Well, because I feel like that's really important information for the council to have, but also for us to advocate on behalf of our community. Yeah. So if it is to our state legislators, if it's to, the county, where we're like, hey, we need, this is how you could help us. We actually have a small number of individuals who are causing a lot of grief.
I can tell you my officers probably can tell you the frequent flyers we have.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure they do.
And so, yes, on who we deal with. But again, that's a good tactic as well, right? So we know who's out there stealing cars. They're not going to stop tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, we could set up, the other thing too that I didn't talk about was the impact team, right? This is another thing that we can go where they actually, if we're starting to see a huge amount of stolen cars in a certain area, using our crime data, we can find out who's been arrested for it, who lives in the area, and then, we can do our impact team to go out there and really concentrate on that area for those individuals or the type of cars that they're stealing. So that's another thing that we're hoping to get up and running by the end of the year as well, to really impact crime. Oh, and then I forgot about the other thing. So on the auto theft, so we have the technology with the LPO to recovery of cars and everything else and identify stolen cars. But we're also a part of the metro area CMAT team, which is the stolen car task force. So this summer we're putting a body down there to assist with that. And oh my gosh, I sound like Brooke. I've talked so much tonight.
We'll make sure he knows. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem Wolford.
Goodness, that was a good laugh. Thank you. Couple of questions for you. Well, first, thank you. This presentation was fantastic. I really appreciated all of the statistics as well as the overview of everything that you all are doing, because there is a lot. And I think that one of the things I really want to see is the police department sharing more of all of the things that y'all are doing. And 2 examples that I've seen recently that I absolutely loved. One was the police officers in tutus at studio school, because that was fantastic. And then the other one I saw today that I've just been giggling about all day was I think his first name is Charlie. He's an SRO, and he was playing violin.
Oh, yeah.
And it was hilarious because he was, I don't know, but it popped up somewhere, and it was hilarious because he clearly was not a violin player, but he's just going for it. And I appreciate that because we've talked a lot about community policing. We've talked a lot about building trust with our students and with our population in general. And I feel like those 2 examples are exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about community policing and meeting people where they are. So I just want to give you some real kudos because your presentation was great. And I'm really excited that y'all are coming out to the Ward 4 meeting. I don't know that we've ever had you just come and talk about public safety, and it seems like a no-brainer, but I'm looking forward to it. The one question that I had for you comes from the slide that says, why is crime up? And it's page 7 in our packets, but there's legislative considerations, and then it says unfunded mandates. Are there things that you all need that are currently unfunded, just citywide?
Some of the reporting requirements and everything else that the state rolled out in Senate Bill 217 and some of, that's the stuff. Again, okay. we can do it. It's not that we haven't seen the me back up just a little bit, because our video, right? So that's another thing, making sure that that's available. So that's one thing, but we've identified that we might need to bring in another digital technician.
Okay.
And, so I don't know if it's going to be this year or next year, making sure we do that, because adding that dash cam, that doubled up his work. And especially we learned, officers sometimes take shortcuts, and, there's a proper way to take the shotgun out of the car. And if you don't do it proper, because we have switches, right? So the cameras come on automatically. And if they just hit the switch, the camera's on, and sometimes that, poor Rico had to watch, 7 hours worth of video because they hit the, so again, training and everything else, it's great technology, but we have to make sure that it doesn't impact our technician. But again, it's still a lot of stuff that we'll probably bring forward in fact. But that's the only, other than that, we're handled with our records and everything else, and, the state reporting on, from the schools that we have to report, our arrest, all of that, so.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure there weren't like outstanding funding things that y'all needed that you hadn't brought forward.
When going through that 360 and identifying the staffing plan and everything else in the 7-year staffing plan, we have, I think we're going to be fine as soon as we get all of them on board, and that stop having kids will be. No, that just adds to our family. That's a positive. I did negative. Here's my positive. Again, it just, but we had a lot of babies this last year. But again, getting everybody back and working, and then, because I would like to increase our minimum staffing requirements, instead of, so I'd like to bump that up by 1 on each shift. And we have the numbers, we just have to get the bodies in and doing that. And I think it's turning. I think we're seeing a little more people more interested. So that's nice. But again, I think I would love to get more from our community. So, really talk us up, because we are a great organization to work for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Witkevich?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with what everyone else has said about the presentation this evening and all the great stats and info.
It was Randy. He's the one that got the.
Well, it's been great, and it's really helpful. And for any public who may be listening or watching, our Ward 1 meeting on this topic is happening on April 2nd. I'm really looking forward to it. I know at least Ward 3 is going to happen before ours, so I can't wait to get feedback and find out, what people are interested in. But I think it was last summer, Ward 1 held a similar meeting. We had a lot of people come out, and I don't know if that's because of what the topic was. Rupa was there. But it wasn't very structured, and so it was just kind of a free-for-all. So I'm really looking forward to this, because I think it'll be a lot smoother. But I think you should be ready for some very specific questions about very specific areas. People will talk about signage, they'll talk about pedestrian, how long they flash. There'll just be very specific questions. And so I think if you're prepared with those areas that are a problem that of, that might be helpful. But I think all of your questions are great, and I think that's a lot of what people will be interested in. So I'm looking forward to that, and we'll just see how the other meetings go. But I think these will be great, and I think they'll be well attended, because this is what everybody's really interested in. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Councilmember Jaramillo?
Hey, Chief, how you been?
Good, how are you?
Good. Just wanted to, I've learned some stuff here today too. That's just great about Impact Team, because I have some friends in Ward 2, they express a lot of repeat offenders for carjackings or even abandoned cars. You'll see that a lot, and they bring that up to me, and they have some idea of where some of these people may reside. So that's interesting, because I didn't know that you guys were doing that, and that's something that he brought up too.
We're not doing it currently. That's one of the things I want to get to, but that's okay. No, that's good. Promote it, because my officers are really excited about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the impact. We did have we sent that press release out on the attempt carjacking that we had in our community, so again, that is a concern. And again, making people aware, being aware of your surroundings when you come out. is super important too, and that comes to that community training as well. So, and then I have people that will come out to your house and do crime prevention through environmental design stuff too. So that's something that we want to roll out, especially with our neighborhood watch groups that we start bringing back. So.
Yeah, that's great too. And I wanted to comment on the triangle that you mentioned, the offenders, victims, and locations. That, when you really put it into perspective for each situation, I thought that was interesting, and the utilization of technology and I've noticed what other municipalities have utilized too. I don't know if you want to go as far as I've been to Chicago where they have gunshot monitors things. I don't know if you want to go that far in some places, but.
Yeah, so I came from Chicago recently. I was deputy chief there, actually in charge of crime control strategies. So gunshot detection is expensive. It just isn't really a necessity for Northglenn in general. It is a very expensive technology. It's over $1 million generally per 2 to 3 square miles of technology. So it's a very expensive technology. And based on the calls of shots fired, 100 in some for the year is tremendously, or actually it was, so 2021, 246. That would be a very, very high expense for the cost. And a lot of the technology with that as well, it is very sensitive technology. So it picks up every bus horn, car horn, backfire, and the technology is excellent. It's outstanding, but it's really not necessary in Northglenn. It's just, we haven't reached any kind of level of that it would really be effective. However, one of the pieces of that is the data technology that's a part of it, and the data is tremendous. So the data awareness and the different data tools that we can use to really identify and operationalize our data into strategies for deployment based on, just as you said, true calls for service, reported crime, and other issues that are related to each community. Each ward within our communities would allow us to better utilize that data and operationalize it so we can be more efficient and more effective with it. And with what you had mentioned, Councilmember Witkovich, with regard to the data, we have not broken down data by wards. We'll be doing a presentation for the whole city at all the ward meetings for a multitude of reasons, but one of them is because the community is so small that the shopping center may not be in your ward, but you're very concerned about what crime is going on in the shopping center, or the park that you utilize. Maybe you utilize the open space a lot, and that is an area that you're concerned about, but it's really not in your ward. So we're going to keep the presentation very level complete as far as data for the entire city as we move through it.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll definitely scratch that idea.
It's just very expensive, and I don't think it's very money well spent for Northglenn.
I was just seeing what else, because you guys are the experts, but I do think the license plate reader is. You guys are doing that?
Yeah. So I have been working with Kyle Haworth with planning on different traffic cams and on different video surveillance for areas and specific areas, and we're getting some quotes that'll come back to council at a later time that'll have kind of a public safety aspect to it as well as a traffic management aspect to it. So that's one tool that could be very, very useful. The license plate reader technology that are now in every one of our cars, we're working with that data to have that manageable, not only from a automobile theft process, but also that is tremendous data when you're doing investigations. When we've had several shots fired calls, our officers respond to those shots fired calls. Well, oftentimes the offender is driving right past our squad car in another direction or maybe right in front of us. We just don't have information on who that offender is yet. We're responding to an anonymous or maybe even a 911 call where somebody left information, but the only information they have is that they heard shots and a car pull away. But as we start to converge on that location from our officer standpoint, these cameras are picking up plates in every direction that they move, and that's going to be a good tool as we move forward in investigations, because it's a tool that the investigators can use to go backwards and say, okay, well, here's what cars were coming out of that area at the immediate time. Here's the cars that were red 5 minutes before, 15 minutes before. So there's really a good data utilization out of that tool. So that will help us, as well as some fixed LPRs are part of that plan that we will bring to you later with planning, so that you can utilize those not only for stolen automobiles, warrant arrests, and other specific identified crime arrests, but in investigative process for our more serious crimes, especially when we have a legitimate shooting incident or we have robbery incidents. To utilize that data to go back and identify potential offenders, huge. When you can take them out of the equation, that's a big deal in increasing public safety.
Thank you.
Councilmember Brown?
Hey, Chief, can you walk down memory lane with me? Back in the day, we're going way back, all right? We had Rick Kellogg, who was basically our community, I guess you call it our community resource officer, right? And he helped, he really helped a lot in pushing through for neighborhood watch and things like that. Do we have somebody currently that it's going to be taking that responsibility on? Because we haven't had a replacement for him. I know all the women swooned over him. I was one. But I'm looking for you know what I mean? So that we can get aggressively into neighborhood
Actually,
watch.
we've always had a community relations officer. That's one of those things with our community policing. As chief, I always made sure we had someone in there. Currently, it's Officer Jeremy Lund and Officer Chris Miller. They're in those roles right there. Again,
And are they
I think with the neighbor, I'm sorry.
Are they going to be the ones who propose the neighborhood watch again? And because I'd like to see that program get started again.
Yeah, no, exactly. We need to build that program back up. Because of COVID, we haven't been able to do that over the last couple of years. So we'll push that this year for sure.
Okay, and is that something you can hit in the ward meetings?
Oh, you bet. I'm going to hit them up for a lot in those ward meetings.
Okay, cool beans. Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Oh, I finally get a turn. No, you guys are so great. You asked all the really good questions. I just wanted to say thank you to you both, because this probably was one of the most thorough presentations we've had from your department. It was extremely organized. The purpose was set out and super clear. It was so solution-focused that it didn't leave us, hyperventilating about the crime statistics, right? It really, it helped me actually feel calmer about it because of everything that you have in place and how focused you are on doing the work. And I look forward to those. And what I would add, I don't know when, Diana, we have the next mayor's coffee, but I would probably invite you to that as well. I think that would be great. I think you were at the last one anyway. Some of the same questions come up, but you anticipated them and you're going to be ready, and that's just awesome. And to the tutus, I have a lot of other background photos of them actually putting them on, but I'm just going to keep those to myself for now. No, but that one photo went really far, and it was because it was so genuine and so sweet. Those officers are very dedicated to the community, to the point of humiliating themselves to make kids smile. And I thought that was absolutely heartwarming and so sweet. But it speaks to the culture in your department. And that's what I wanted to make sure I highlighted. And I meant to do it in communications, and so I'm glad I still had a moment, because that is really what it is. You have a positive culture in your department that would give them the freedom to do that, because I know they got some serious, razzing back at the Justice Center, I'm sure. But it was fantastic. And I don't know, it was a lovely thing to see. So I really appreciated it.
Well, thank you. And I'll let them know. And the other thing too, I'm going to do a plug. We sent out invitations for our 2021 banquet, and I would love to see everybody there. And again, that's in a very important night. to honor those. Again, honoring everything they do day to day, but again, honor those situations that really stood out in 2021. So I'd love to see everybody there. And Julie, that was some sad news tonight. Your husband still owes me lunch, just saying.
He does.
But
I'll let him know.
I will definitely miss you, so. But you're just in Thornton, you're just on the other side of the,
Not too.
well, thank you. Any other questions?
Oh,
All right.
no, that was great.
You guys
Thank you
have an
so
awesome
much.
night. Thank you.
Okay, it is now time for public invited to be heard. I think they're all sleeping, but this is an opportunity for public comment. I don't have anyone on the line. Joanna, is there anyone there? I don't think so. And nobody is in the audience, so I'm going to move past that. I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session. I'm going to read this whole thing because it's a lot. Number 1, pursuant to section 4.5G of the City of Northglenn Home Rule Charter for negotiations regarding the temporary cold weather shelter. Number 2, pursuant to section 4.5D of the City of Northglenn Home Rule Charter for legal consultation and advice regarding litigation. Number 3, pursuant to section 4.5D of the City of Northglenn Home Rule Charter for legal consultation and advice regarding the Rangeview Library District. And number 4, pursuant to section 4.5A of the City of Northglenn Home Rule Charter for personnel matters regarding a city manager performance check-in. Somebody motion that. Please open the vote.
We're just waiting for you to stop talking.
I know.
Councilmember Brown, how do you vote?
I think we need to make.
Councilmember Brown, you're muted.
Still muted.
I could unmute myself, Joanna. Yes, please.
Thank you. It's not registering a vote from Councilmember Walker.
I don't even see the box up.
Okay.
It's the check mark down below.
Green check mark.
Do you see it?
You may have to scroll down because the motion is so lengthy.
So long.
Apologies.
I'll close that vote, and the motion to adjourn to executive session passes unanimously.
Great. Going to that.
Yes.
I know.